The wolf tracks were still warm. Arya pressed her fingers against the massive paw print, her hand trembling as blood dripped from the gash in her side onto the cave floor. The print was easily twice the size of any wolf she'd ever seen, and whatever had made it had passed through here minutes ago, maybe less. Behind her, 3-year-old twins Lily and Mason whimpered, their small bodies pressed against her back, tiny fists clutching the torn fabric of her dress. The same dress she'd been wearing at the mating ceremony. The same dress Thorn had nearly ripped off her before she'd kicked him hard enough to run. "Mama?" Lily's voice was barely a whisper. "I'm scared." "So am I, baby. So am I." Arya pulled the children deeper into the cave, away from the moonlight spilling through the entrance. Every step sent fresh pain shooting through her ribs where the patrol wolves had caught her at the forest edge. She'd fought them off, barely, but not before teeth had found flesh. The wound wasn't fatal, but it wouldn't heal quickly either. Not without a pack healer. Not without the one thing she'd just thrown away. Her freedom had cost her everything, and she'd paid it gladly. The darkwood cave loomed around them, all shadow and stone. Local wolves whispered about this place, about the ancient pack that had vanished here a century ago, about the curse that kept even the bravest warriors away. Arya had always dismissed the stories as superstition. Now, staring at those impossible tracks, she wasn't so sure. "We'll rest here tonight," she told the twins, keeping her voice steady even as her vision swam. "Just for tonight, and then we'll keep moving." "Where?" Mason asked. At 3, he was too young to understand they had nowhere to go. No pack would take in a widowed Omega with pups, especially not when Beta Councilman Thorn had claimed her. To steal another wolf's chosen mate was a death sentence. She'd signed all their death warrants the moment she ran. Arya sank against the cave wall, pulling the children close. She needed to stop the bleeding. Needed to think. Needed to figure out how to keep her babies alive when she could barely keep herself conscious. Her fingers found the hem of her dress, already torn from the chase, and ripped another strip. The fabric was silk, expensive, beautiful, chosen by Thorn himself for tonight's ceremony. She wrapped it around her ribs, biting back a scream as the pressure sent white-hot agony through her body. "Mama's bleeding," Lily whimpered. "Mama's fine." The lie tasted bitter. "Close your eyes now. Try to sleep." But Lily's eyes weren't closing. They were locked on something behind Arya, growing wide with terror. Arya's wolf stirred, the first time since her mate died that the creature had shown any interest in the world. A growl built in her chest as she turned, positioning herself between the children and whatever had caught Lily's attention. More tracks. Leading deeper into the cave. And something else. A pile of furs in the corner, arranged like a bed. A stack of firewood, neatly cut. A metal cup beside a natural spring that trickled from the rock wall. Someone lived here. Someone had made a home in the cursed cave where no wolf dared to tread. Her wolf snarled a warning half a second before the temperature dropped. The shadow fell across the cave entrance like a living thing, blocking out the moonlight, blocking out the stars, blocking out everything except the shape of something massive and male and absolutely still. Arya couldn't see his face. Couldn't see anything except the gleaming reflection of eyes that caught the dim light and threw it back at her like mirrors. Like a predator in the dark. The voice that emerged from that shadow was rough, and used, like gravel grinding against stone. "You're bleeding on my floor, Omega." Not a question. Not a threat. Just a statement of fact, delivered with the kind of cold authority that made her wolf want to bare her throat in submission. Arya's fingers dug into the cave floor. She forced herself to her feet, swaying, positioning her body between those eyes and her children. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but there was nowhere left to go. Behind her, the twins pressed close enough that she could feel their rapid heartbeats against her back. "We'll leave." Her voice came out stronger than she felt. "We didn't know anyone lived here. We'll go." The shadow didn't move. "You're bleeding." "I'm fine. You can barely stand." She couldn't argue with that. The cave tilted sideways, and she caught herself against the wall, leaving a smear of blood on the stone. Her wolf whined, confused and weak and useless, just like it had been since the day her mate died. The shadow took a step forward, and Arya finally saw him. Massive didn't begin to cover it. He was easily 6.5 feet tall, maybe more, with shoulders that seemed to fill the entire cave entrance. His hair was dark, longer than was fashionable, falling past his collar in waves that suggested he didn't care much about pack standards. His face was all hard angles and sharp edges, a jaw that could have been carved from granite, a nose that had been broken at least twice, and those eyes. Those impossible silver eyes that seemed to glow in the darkness. He wasn't just any wolf. Her wolf knew it, even if her human mind was too slow to catch up. Alpha, she whispered. Not just an alpha. The alpha. The kind that only appeared in old stories, the kind that could make the earth tremble and the sky weep. The kind that hadn't been seen in the territories for generations. He studied her with those unnerving eyes, his gaze moving from her face to her bleeding side to the two small shapes clinging to her back. Something shifted in his expression, not quite softening, but not quite so cold anymore. The pups, he said. They're yours? Arya's fingers curled into fists. Yes. Their father? Dead. The words still hurt, even after 2 years. And they're mine. If you're going to kill us, kill me first. Let them go. His eyebrows rose slightly, the first real expression she'd seen on that stone face. Why would I kill you? Because we're trespassing. Because we're weak. Because, her voice cracked. Because that's what wolves do. For a long moment, he just looked at her. Then he moved, crossing the cave in 3 long strides, and Arya's wolf screamed at her to run, to fight, to do something. He walked past her. Straight to the pile of furs in the corner, which he gathered in his arms and brought back to where she stood frozen. He spread them on the floor, creating a makeshift bed, then straightened and fixed her with that silver stare. Sit. What? Sit down before you fall down. You're making the pups more frightened than they need to be. Arya's legs gave out, and she found herself sitting on the furs without meaning to. They were soft. Warm. They smelled like pine and winter wind and something else, something that made her wolf stir with interest for the first time in months. The alpha crouched in front of her, and she realized he was giving her space, making himself smaller, less threatening. His eyes found the wound in her side, and his jaw tightened. Patrol wolves? She nodded. From which pack? Silvermoon. Something dark crossed his face. Thorn's territory. The fact that he knew Thorn's name shouldn't have surprised her. Even in isolation, an alpha would know the major players in the region. What surprised her was the way he said it, like the name itself was poison. He'll come looking for you, the alpha said. It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. Yes. Why? Arya's hand moved protectively to the twins, who had finally stopped crying but were still pressed against her like small shadows. Because I'm his chosen mate. Because I ran. Because, she stopped. The rest didn't matter. The alpha's eyes narrowed. You rejected your mate bond? There was no bond. He chose me at the ceremony tonight. I had no choice in the matter. Bitterness crept into her voice. Omegas don't get choices. No, he agreed quietly. They don't. Something in his tone made her look up, really look at him. The story said alphas were ruthless. Brutal. That they took what they wanted and damned the consequences. But this alpha was carefully keeping his distance, his movements slow and deliberate, his voice gentle when he spoke to her. Like he understood what it meant to have no choices. I can't treat that wound properly in the dark, he said. But I can slow the bleeding until morning. Will you let me? Every survival instinct she possessed screamed at her to say no. To grab the pups and run back out into the forest, even bleeding, even broken. Because accepting help meant owing a debt, and owing a debt to an alpha meant giving up the only thing she had left. Her freedom. But Mason was crying again, and Lily was trying so hard to be brave even though her little body was shaking with exhaustion, and Arya was so goddamn tired of being strong when she had nothing left to give. Okay, she whispered. The Alpha nodded once, then rose and disappeared deeper into the cave. She heard him moving around, the sound of water being poured, the scrape of something metal against stone. When he returned, he carried a bowl of clean water and strips of cloth that looked like they'd been torn from a shirt. He knelt beside her again, and this time he was close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. Close enough that her wolf perked up and paid attention. Close enough that she could see the scars on his hands, dozens of them, layered over each other like a history written in violence. This will hurt, he warned. She'd been hurt before. I can handle it. His lips twitched, not quite a smile, but close. Then his hands were on her skin, gentle despite their size, cleaning the wound with careful precision. He was right. It hurt. But she'd endured worse, and she'd endure this too. Behind her, the twins watched with wide eyes as the scary Alpha tended their mother's wounds. And something in Arya's chest, something that had been broken and cold and dead for so long, flickered back to life. Just a spark. Just enough to make her think that maybe, they might survive this after all. The Alpha finished binding her ribs and sat back, studying his work with a critical eye. Then those silver eyes met hers, and she saw something there that made her breath catch. Recognition. Understanding. And beneath it all, a loneliness so profound it made her own pain seem small. You can stay, he said quietly. Tonight. Tomorrow. As long as you need. Why? The question escaped before she could stop it. You don't know me. You don't know what kind of trouble I'll bring to your door. The Alpha stood, towering over her once more, and for just a moment, she saw something ancient and terrible move behind his eyes. Something that reminded her why caves had legends and why wolves feared the dark. Because, he said, his voice dropping to something that was almost a growl, I know exactly what kind of trouble Thorn is. He turned and walked back toward the cave entrance, his massive frame silhouetted against the night. Sleep, Omega. You're safe here. The pups are safe here. He paused, his back still to her. And in the morning, you're going to tell me why Beta Councilman Thorn is so desperate to claim a widowed Omega with twin pups that he sent patrol wolves into the Darkwood to hunt you down. Then he was gone, melting into the shadows like he'd never been there at all. Arya sat in the darkness, her children finally sleeping against her side, and wondered what kind of Alpha lived alone in a cursed cave. And what it would cost her to find out. Chapter 2. Arya woke to the smell of coffee. For a moment, disoriented and aching, she thought she was back in her small cottage at Silvermoon, that Marcus was still alive, that the last 2 years had been nothing but a nightmare. Then Lily shifted against her side, and Mason's small hand tightened on her sleeve, and reality crashed back with the weight of stone. The cave. The Alpha. The blood on her dress. She sat up slowly, wincing as her ribs protested. Someone had covered them with another fur during the night, thick and warm, smelling of pine and winter. The twins were still sleeping, their small faces peaceful for the first time in days. She hated to wake them, but the scent of coffee was too tempting to ignore. And more than that, she needed to see him in the daylight. Needed to confirm that the massive Alpha who'd tended her wounds wasn't just a fever dream born from blood loss and desperation. The cave looked different in the morning light that filtered through the entrance. Larger than she'd realized, with natural alcoves carved into the rock walls. Someone had made this place livable, not comfortable, exactly, but functional. There was a fire pit with a metal grate suspended over it, a crude shelf holding supplies, even a few books stacked in the corner. The books surprised her most. Alphas didn't usually read. They commanded, they fought, they ruled. They didn't hide in caves reading books. She found him at the cave entrance, his back to her, staring out at the forest below. In the dawn light, he was even more imposing than she'd remembered. His shoulders were impossibly broad beneath a worn black shirt, his dark hair falling past his collar in waves that suggested he'd forgotten what scissors were for. But it was the stillness of him that struck her most, the absolute, predatory stillness of something that could explode into violence at any moment but chose not to. "There's coffee," he said without turning around. "Not much, but it's hot." Arya moved toward the fire, where a battered metal pot sat warming. She poured herself a cup, letting the heat seep into her cold fingers. "Thank you. How's the wound?" She touched her ribs gingerly. Still painful, but the bleeding had stopped. "Better. It'll scar. I have others." That made him turn, those silver eyes finding hers with an intensity that stole her breath. He studied her for a long moment, and she had the uncomfortable feeling he was reading her the way most people read books, seeing past the surface to the story underneath. "Sit," he said finally, gesturing to a flat rock near the fire. "You're still weak." She wanted to argue, but her legs were trembling, so she sat. He moved with that same careful deliberation she'd noticed last night, keeping his distance, making himself less threatening. It was strange, watching an alpha try to make himself smaller. Most of them wanted you to know exactly how dangerous they were. "You said your name was Caspian," she ventured. "Caspian Blackthorn." He poured himself coffee, his hand surprisingly steady around the small cup. "You've heard of me." It wasn't a question. Everyone in the territory had heard of Caspian Blackthorn. The Alpha King who'd united 3 warring packs under his rule. The warrior who'd never lost a challenge. The legend who'd vanished 3 years ago, leaving his entire kingdom in chaos. The wolf who'd supposedly gone feral and had to be put down. "They said you were dead," Arya whispered. They were almost right. He took a long drink of coffee, his eyes distant. "Sometimes I wish they had been." Before she could respond, a small voice called out from deeper in the cave. "Mama?" "Lily." Arya stood too quickly, her ribs screaming in protest, but Caspian was already moving past her with that uncanny speed. He reached the makeshift bed first, crouching down to the twins' level with a gentleness that seemed impossible for someone so large. "Your mother is right here," he said softly, his rough voice somehow soothing. "She's safe." Lily looked up at him with huge eyes, her small hand clutching Mason's. "Are you a bad wolf?" Caspian's expression shifted, not quite a smile, but something that might have been one a long time ago. "Sometimes," he admitted. "But not today. Mama says bad wolves hurt people. Your mama is smart." He glanced back at Arya, something unreadable in his gaze. "You should listen to her." Arya reached the bed and pulled both children close, relief flooding through her. They were okay. They were safe. For now, at least. "I'm hungry," Mason announced, because 3-year-olds had priorities that didn't include existential dread. "I have dried meat," Caspian offered, standing. "And some berries I gathered yesterday." "It's not much." "It's perfect," Arya interrupted. "Thank you." He nodded once and disappeared toward the back of the cave. Arya used the opportunity to check the twins over, making sure they hadn't been injured during their flight. Lily was fine, but Mason's forehead felt warm. Too warm. "Baby, do you feel okay?" she asked, pressing her palm to his cheek. "My throat hurts," Mason whispered. Panic clawed at her chest. "Not now. Not here, miles from any healer, with nowhere to go and no way to help him." She'd seen children die from fevers in the wilderness. Had watched helplessly as infection took them, their small bodies unable to fight. "Let me see." Caspian was back, kneeling beside them with food in his hands. But his attention wasn't on the supplies, it was on Mason, those silver eyes sharp and assessing. "Open your mouth, pup." Mason obeyed, and Caspian leaned in, studying his throat with the careful attention of someone who knew what he was looking for. When he sat back, his expression was grim. "Fever," he confirmed. "Early stages. The cold, the stress, the run through the forest, his body is trying to fight too many things at once." He met Arya's eyes. It's not bad yet, but it will get worse if we don't treat it. I don't have anything, Arya said desperately. No medicine, no herbs, nothing. I do. She stared at him. You're a healer? No. He stood, moving toward one of the alcoves carved into the cave wall. But I've been alone a long time. You learn to take care of yourself. He returned with a leather pouch and a small clay bowl. Willow bark for the fever, elderflower for his throat, honey to make it taste less terrible. He worked with practiced efficiency, crushing dried herbs between his fingers, mixing them with water from the spring, adding just enough honey to sweeten the mixture. Arya watched, fascinated despite herself. Alphas didn't do this kind of work. They had pack healers, subordinates, others to handle the small details of care. But Caspian Blackthorn had no one. Drink this, he told Mason gently, offering the bowl. All of it. I know it tastes bad, but it'll help. Mason made a face but obeyed, chugging the mixture with the determination of a child who desperately wanted to be brave. When he finished, Caspian took the bowl and ruffled the boy's hair, a gesture so unexpected and tender that Arya's throat tightened. Good, Caspian said. Now rest. Both of you. Let the medicine work. The twins settled back into the furs, and within minutes, they were asleep again. Arya covered them carefully, then turned to find Caspian watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. You're good with them, she said quietly. Something dark crossed his face. I had a pack once. Children in it. His voice went flat. Before the curse. Before the exile. Before whatever had driven the legendary Alpha King into a cave in the middle of nowhere. Arya wanted to ask, but the look in his eyes stopped her. Instead, she said, you told me you'd let us stay until dawn. It's past dawn. The pup is sick. So you're breaking your own rules? I'm revising them. He moved back toward the cave entrance, putting distance between them. You can stay until the fever breaks. Then you leave. Where? The question came out sharper than she'd intended. Where exactly do you think we're going to go? I'm a widowed Omega with twin pups and a beta councilman who wants to claim me. No pack will take us in. No wolf will help us. We're as good as dead the moment we step outside this cave. Caspian's hands curled into fists. That's not my problem. Then why did you help us at all? He spun to face her, and for the first time, she saw real anger in those silver eyes. Because I made a mistake, he growled. Because I let you stay, and now your scent is all over this cave, and when Thorn's wolves come, and they will come, they'll know you were here. They'll know someone helped you. And they'll want to know who. So this is about protecting yourself. This is about protecting you. His voice dropped to something dangerous. You don't know what I am, Omega. You don't know what lives in this cave during the full moon. And trust me when I tell you that Beta Councilman Thorn is a puppy compared to what I become. Arya's wolf stirred, sensing the truth beneath his words. The rage. The pain. The absolute certainty that he was something to be feared. But she'd been afraid before. Fear was familiar. Fear she could handle. Show me, she said. What? If you're such a monster, show me. Prove it. Because all I've seen so far is an alpha who saved my life, tended my wounds, and made medicine for my son. She took a step toward him, ignoring the way her ribs protested. So either show me the monster, or stop using it as an excuse to push me away. For a long moment, he just stared at her. Then, without a word, he grabbed her wrist, not roughly, but firmly enough that she couldn't pull away, and dragged her toward the back of the cave. The shadows deepened as they moved away from the entrance. The air grew colder. And then she saw them. Silver chains. Dozens of them, embedded directly into the stone walls with bolts as thick as her wrist. They hung in loops, some still locked, some broken, all of them stained with something dark that might have been rust but probably wasn't. And beneath them, the floor was gouged with claw marks. Deep gouges, carved into solid rock as if the stone were butter. Some were old, weathered by time. Others looked fresh. Full moon was 4 days ago, Caspian said quietly. I chain myself to these walls because if I don't, I wake up covered in blood with no memory of where I've been or what I've done. He released her wrist and stepped back. 3 years ago, I killed my beta. Ripped his throat out while he was trying to calm me down. He was my best friend. My brother in all but blood. And I murdered him. Aria's hand went to her mouth. The curse is real. His laugh was bitter. The pack shaman said I was too powerful, that my wolf was too strong, that eventually it would consume me completely. I didn't believe her. I was the Alpha King, curses were for lesser wolves. He touched one of the chains, his fingers tracing the silver links. But she was right. Every full moon, I become something else. Something that doesn't recognize friend from foe. Something that only knows hunger and rage and blood. So you exiled yourself. I saved my pack. He met her eyes, and the pain in them was staggering. I walked away from everything I built because I couldn't risk hurting anyone else. And I've been here ever since, living like an animal, waiting for the day when the curse finally wins and I don't wake up at all. The silence that followed was heavy with things unsaid. Arya looked at the chains, at the claw marks, at the silver eyes of a king who'd given up his crown to protect his people. And she understood, finally, what it meant to have no choices. The full moon, she said quietly. How long do we have? 23 days. Then we'll be gone in 22. Caspian shook his head. You're not listening. Thorn is coming. He'll be here long before then. How do you know? Because I would. And Omega fled his claim, embarrassed him in front of the pack. He can't let that stand. He'll hunt you down if it takes him months. Caspian's jaw tightened. And when he finds this cave, when he finds you've been here, he'll want to know who helped you. He'll want revenge. Against you? Against anyone who defied him. He moved back toward the main cave, and Arya followed. I've heard stories about Thorn. He's cruel, ambitious, and he doesn't forgive slights. You rejected him in front of his entire pack. That's not something a wolf like him forgets. Arya knew he was right. She'd seen the look in Thorn's eyes when she kicked him, the cold fury beneath the surprise. He would come for her. And he would bring hell with him. So what do we do? She asked. We? Caspian turned to look at her. There is no we, Omega. You're leaving as soon as the pup is well enough to travel. And where exactly do you think I'm going to go that Thorn won't find me? That's not your problem, she finished. I know. You've made that very clear. She crossed her arms, wincing as the movement pulled at her ribs. But whether you like it or not, we're in this together now. My scent is in your cave. If Thorn finds me, he finds you. So you can either help me figure out a plan, or you can keep pretending you're some kind of monster who doesn't care about anyone but himself. Caspian's eyes narrowed. You're pushing, Omega. Good. She lifted her chin, refusing to back down. Because I've spent the last 2 years letting other wolves push me around, and I'm done. My mate died protecting us from a rogue attack that the Pack Council refused to acknowledge. I raised my children alone while the Council tried to take them away. And when Thorn decided I'd make a good broodmare, I ran instead of rolling over and accepting my fate. Her voice shook, but she kept going. So yes, I'm pushing. Because I have nothing left to lose, and you're the first wolf in 2 years who's treated me like I'm more than just a convenient vessel for someone's heirs. Silence fell between them, charged and dangerous. Caspian stood utterly still, his silver eyes locked on hers, and Arya had the sudden, terrifying certainty that she'd gone too far. That she'd pushed the wrong alpha at the wrong time. Then he smiled. It wasn't much, barely a curve of his lips, but it transformed his face, made him look less like a monster and more like the king he'd been. You've got fire, he said quietly. I'll give you that. Before Arya could respond, Caspian's head snapped toward the cave entrance. His entire body went rigid, his nostrils flaring, and the temperature in the cave seemed to drop 10 degrees. "What?" Arya whispered. "What is it?" "Thorn." The name came out as a growl. "I can smell him on the wind." Arya's heart stopped. "Already? But we only left last night." "He must have started hunting immediately." Caspian moved to the entrance with that uncanny speed, his eyes scanning the forest below. "He's brought others. 12, maybe 13 wolves. They're still a few miles out, but they're coming fast." "The pups," Arya gasped, spinning toward where the twins slept. "We have to." "Quiet." Caspian's voice was sharp, commanding. "Listen to me very carefully. There's a passage at the back of this cave that leads deeper into the mountain. Take the children and go. Now. What about you? I'm going to make sure Thorn and his hunting party lose your trail. They'll kill you. They'll try." His smile was sharp, dangerous, and for the first time, Arya saw the Alpha King beneath the exile. "I'm harder to kill than I look." Arya wanted to argue, wanted to tell him that she wasn't leaving him to face 13 wolves alone, that they could run together, that there had to be another way. But Mason chose that moment to cough, a wet, rattling sound that made her blood run cold. The fever. She'd forgotten about the fever. Caspian was beside her in an instant, his hand gentle on the boy's forehead. "It's breaking," he said quietly. "But he needs rest. Running will make it worse. I can't stay here while you fight them. You don't have a choice." He stood, already moving toward a pile of weapons she hadn't noticed before, knives, a bow, even a sword that looked older than the cave itself. "Your beta is coming. And he's brought 12 wolves with him. He's strapped on the sword, the movement practiced, familiar. By the time he gets here, you and the pups will be gone. That's not negotiable." Arya opened her mouth to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. This wasn't the gentle Alpha who'd made medicine for her son. This was Caspian Blackthorn, the Alpha King who'd united 3 packs through strength and will and blood. This was the wolf Thorn should have been afraid of all along. "The passage," he repeated. "Take the furs, take the supplies I've left there, and don't come back until I come for you. Understand? And if you don't come?" His expression softened, just slightly. "Then you keep running. You find a way to protect those pups. Because that's what mothers do." He touched her cheek, the gesture so unexpected that she froze. "You're stronger than you know, Arya. Don't let anyone tell you different." Then he was gone, moving toward the cave entrance with the fluid grace of something that was more than human. More than wolf. Something that had been a king. Arya watched him go, her heart pounding, every instinct screaming at her to help, to fight, to do something other than run away and hide. But Mason coughed again, and Lily stirred in her sleep, and Arya knew with devastating certainty that Caspian was right. She had to protect her children. Even if it meant leaving him to face the wolves alone. She gathered the twins carefully, wrapping them in furs, whispering soothing nonsense as she carried them toward the back of the cave. The passage Caspian had mentioned was narrow, dark, barely wide enough for her to squeeze through with both children in her arms. But she pushed forward, step by step, into the mountain's depths. Behind her, she heard the first howls of the hunting party. And beneath it, impossibly, the sound of a single wolf howling back, a challenge, a warning, a promise of violence. The Alpha King had come out of exile. And Thorn was about to learn why legends were meant to be feared. Chapter 3. The passage wound deeper into the mountain like a serpent's tunnel, all stone and shadow and the drip of water from somewhere far above. Arya's arms ached from carrying the twins, her ribs screaming with every step, but she kept moving. Kept pushing forward into the darkness because the alternative was unthinkable. Behind them, the howls grew louder. "Mama, I'm scared," Lily whispered against her shoulder. "I know, baby. I know." Arya's voice was steadier than her hands. "But we have to be quiet now. Very, very quiet. Can you do that for me? Both children nodded, their small faces pale in the dim light that filtered through cracks in the rock. Mason's forehead was still too warm, his breathing shallow, but at least he'd stopped coughing. Small mercies. She'd take them where she could find them. The passage opened into a larger cavern, this one lit by narrow shafts of sunlight that streamed through fissures in the ceiling. Caspian had been thorough. There were supplies stacked against the far wall, more furs spread across the floor, even a small cache of dried food and water. He'd prepared this place. Had known, maybe, that someday he'd need a bolt hole within his bolt hole. Or maybe he'd just planned for the day when the curse finally won and he needed somewhere to die alone. Arya shook the thought away and settled the twins on the furs, wrapping them tight. Stay here, she whispered. Don't move, don't make a sound. I'll be right back. Where are you going? Mason's voice was small, frightened. Somewhere she shouldn't. Somewhere dangerous. Somewhere that went against every survival instinct she possessed. Just to the entrance, she lied. To keep watch. She moved back through the passage before either child could argue, her wolf pushing her forward even though her human mind screamed at her to turn back. She shouldn't care what happened to Caspian Blackthorn. He was nothing to her, a stranger who'd given them shelter for a night, an exile who'd made it clear they weren't his responsibility. But he'd been gentle with Mason. Had made medicine with his own scarred hands. Had looked at her like she was more than just an omega to be claimed or discarded. And now he was facing 13 wolves alone because of her. The main cave was empty when she reached it, the fire still smoking, the scent of coffee long gone. But she could hear voices outside, harsh, demanding, radiating the kind of authority that made her wolf want to tuck its tail and hide. She pressed herself against the cave wall near the entrance, hidden in shadow, and looked out. The hunting party stood in a loose semicircle at the base of the cave, their wolves close to the surface, making their eyes gleam with inner light. Arya recognized some of them, pack warriors from Silvermoon, men who'd watched her at the ceremony, who'd known what Thorn intended and had done nothing to stop it. And at the center, standing with the casual arrogance of someone who'd never been told no in his entire life, was Beta Councilman Thorn. He was handsome in the way predators were handsome, all sharp angles and calculated charm. His hair was perfectly styled despite the run through the forest, his clothes expensive even covered in dirt. But it was his eyes that made Arya's skin crawl. Cold. Calculating. The eyes of someone who saw people as things to be used and discarded. The eyes of someone who would never let her go. I know you're in there, Omega, Thorn called out, his voice carrying easily in the morning air. You and those brats you insist on dragging around. Come out now, and I'll be merciful. Make me come in after you. He smiled, and it was the smile of a wolf showing teeth. Well. Let's just say the pups might not survive the reunion. Arya's fingers dug into the stone. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to hide, to protect her children at any cost. But before she could move, a shadow detached itself from the rocks above the cave entrance. Caspian. He dropped to the ground with inhuman grace, landing between the hunting party and the cave. He'd covered himself with a heavy cloak, the hood pulled low to hide his face, but even draped in fabric, his size was impossible to disguise. He looked massive, dangerous, like something out of the old stories grandmothers told to frighten pups into behaving. This mountain is neutral territory, he said, his voice rough, distorted somehow. You have no authority here. Thorn's eyes narrowed. And who are you to declare what is and isn't neutral territory? Someone who was here long before your pack claimed these lands. Someone who will be here long after your dust. Caspian shifted, and even through the cloak, Arya could see the tension in his shoulders. Turn around. Go back to your comfortable dens and your soft lives. There are no refugees here. Liar. Thorn took a step forward, and the hunting party moved with him, a coordinated threat. I can smell her. The Omega and her brats were here. Are still here, maybe, hiding in your cave like rats. What I shelter is my business. Not when you're sheltering stolen property. Thorn's smile widened. The Omega is mine. Claimed in front of the entire pack during the ceremony. She belongs to me by right and law. She rejected you. She's an Omega. She doesn't get to reject anyone. Thorn's voice dropped, dangerous now. So I'll ask you one more time, stranger. Step aside and let me collect what's mine, or I'll go through you to get it. For a long moment, Caspian was absolutely still. Then he laughed, low and dark, a sound that made the hair on Arya's arm stand up. You can try. Thorn's face went hard. You dare. I dare. Caspian pushed the hood back slightly, just enough that silver eyes gleamed in the shadow. This is your last warning, Beta. Take your hunters and leave. While you still can. The title landed like a slap. Thorn's entire body went rigid, his wolf surging forward. How do you know my rank? I know what you are. What you've always been. Caspian's voice was soft, deadly. A beta playing at being an alpha. Using pack law to take what you're too weak to claim through strength. Thorn moved. He was fast, Arya would give him that. Beta speed, enhanced by rage and wounded pride. His claws extended mid-lunge, aiming for Caspian's throat, going for the kill because anything less would be seen as weakness. Caspian didn't even shift. He simply caught Thorn's wrist mid-strike and twisted, the movement so smooth it looked almost casual. Thorn's momentum carried him past, and Caspian used it against him, sending the beta crashing into the ground hard enough to crack stone. The hunting party surged forward, but Caspian held up one hand. Stay back. This is between your beta and me. And somehow, impossibly, they obeyed. They froze mid-step, their wolves whining in confusion, their bodies responding to an authority they didn't understand. Thorn pushed himself up, blood trickling from his split lip, his eyes blazing with fury. You're going to regret that. I regret many things. Caspian's voice was sad, almost gentle. Breaking you won't be one of them. They circled each other now, two predators sizing each other up. Thorn was good, Arya could see that. He'd been trained, probably by the best fighters in the pack. His stance was perfect, his movements calculated, every attack designed for maximum damage. But Caspian moved like violence was a language he'd been born speaking. He didn't waste motion. Didn't telegraph his strikes. Every movement flowed into the next with brutal efficiency, and within seconds, Arya realized with cold certainty that Caspian wasn't just beating Thorn. He was teaching him a lesson. Thorn lunged again, claws extended, and Caspian sidestepped, letting the beta's momentum carry him past. A quick strike to the back of the knee, and Thorn was stumbling. Another to his ribs, precisely placed, and the beta was gasping for air. Submit, Caspian said quietly. This doesn't have to end in blood. Go to hell. Thorn shifted mid-attack, his body contorting into his wolf form, a massive gray beast with amber eyes and teeth like knives. It was a desperate move, the kind of thing you did when you were losing and knew it. Wolf form was stronger, faster, harder to kill. But it also gave up all pretense of humanity. The gray wolf launched itself at Caspian's throat, jaws wide, going for the kill. And Caspian, still in human form, simply reached up and caught the wolf by the throat mid-leap. The hunting party gasped. Arya's hands flew to her mouth. Because catching a full-grown wolf in mid-shift, in mid-attack, with nothing but human strength, that was impossible. That was beyond even alpha capability. That was something else entirely. Caspian held Thorn's wolf suspended in the air, his fingers tight around its throat, his silver eyes burning with something that was definitely not human. I said submit. The wolf snarled, twisting, snapping, desperate now. Its claws raked at Caspian's arm, tearing through flesh, drawing blood. But Caspian didn't even flinch. He just squeezed tighter, cutting off air, his face expressionless. Submit. Or die. Choose. Arya saw the moment Thorn realized he was going to lose. Saw the fear flash through those amber wolf eyes. saw the proud beta finally understand that he'd challenged something far beyond his ability to defeat. The gray wolf went limp in Caspian's grip, exposing its throat, the ultimate submission. Caspian held him there a moment longer, making sure the lesson landed, then released him. Thorn hit the ground hard, shifting back to human form, gasping and clutching his throat. His hunters rushed forward, but stopped when Caspian turned his attention to them. "Take your beta," Caspian said softly. "And remember what you saw here today." But as they moved to collect Thorn, something shifted in the air. Arya felt it before she saw it, a pressure, building behind her eyes, making her wolf whine and press low. The temperature dropped. The wind stopped. Even the birds went silent. And Caspian's control started to slip. It began with his eyes. The silver bled brighter, glowing like molten metal. Then his hands, still dripping with blood from where Thorn had clawed him, began to shake. His breathing changed, became harsher, more animal than human. The hunting party felt it too. They stumbled back, their wolves screaming at them to run, to flee, to get as far away as possible from whatever was standing before them. Because it wasn't a man anymore. "No," Caspian whispered, his voice distorted. "No, not now." Power exploded outward from him like a shockwave. Pure, undiluted alpha dominance, the kind that existed in legends and nightmares. It crashed over the hunting party like a physical force, driving them to their knees involuntarily. Wolves dropped, throats bared, bodies pressed to the ground in submission they couldn't fight. Even Thorn, bleeding and broken, couldn't resist. He went down hard, his forehead pressed to the dirt, his wolf howling in terror. Only Thorn's will kept him from complete submission. He fought it, shaking, his teeth bared in defiance even as his body betrayed him. "What are you?" Caspian's cloak had fallen away, revealing the truth beneath. Scars covered his arms, his chest, dozens of them, layered over each other like the history of violence written in flesh. But it was the silver marks on his neck that made Arya's blood run cold. Alpha King marks. The traditional tattoos that only royalty bore. Marks that belonged to someone who'd supposedly died 3 years ago. "Run," Caspian growled, his voice barely human now. "Run before I lose control completely." Thorn tried to stand and couldn't. His body simply wouldn't obey. The dominance was too strong, too absolute. He was pinned by nothing but the force of will from an alpha whose power dwarfed his own. "I said run." The command cracked like thunder, and suddenly the hunting party could move again. They scrambled up, grabbing Thorn, dragging him away even as he fought them. Away from the cave, away from the mountain, away from the thing wearing Caspian Blackthorn's face. But as they fled, Thorn's eyes found the cave entrance. Found the small face peeking out from the shadows. Found Mason, his silver eyes wide with fear and wonder. Silver eyes. The rarest marker among their kind. The sign of a born alpha, the kind who could lead packs, unite territories, change the balance of power across entire regions. Silver eyes that appeared maybe once in a generation, maybe less. Silver eyes that made a 3-year-old pup worth more than gold. Arya saw the moment Thorn understood. Saw the greedy calculation flash across his face even through his fear and pain. He'd come for an Omega, and he'd found a future Alpha King. "No," she whispered. But it was too late. Thorn was already smiling through his split lip, already planning, already calculating how he could turn this disaster into opportunity. "I'll be back," he called out, his voice ragged but determined. "With the Pack Council. With an army if I have to. And I'm not just taking the Omega anymore." He pointed directly at Mason with one shaking hand. "I'm taking that pup too." Then they were gone, disappearing into the forest, leaving only trampled ground and the scent of blood behind. Arya ran to Mason, snatching him back from the entrance, holding him so tight he squeaked in protest. Her mind was racing, panic clawing at her chest. Silver eyes. Of course Mason had silver eyes. She'd noticed them when he was born, had dismissed them as a trick of the light, had hoped desperately they would change as he grew older. But they hadn't. And now Thorn knew. Arya. Caspian's voice was rough, exhausted. The power had faded, leaving him hunched over, breathing hard, blood still dripping from his arm. The dominance display had cost him, she could see it in the way he swayed, in the pallor of his skin. You need to run, he said quietly. Pack your things, take the pups, and run as far and as fast as you can. Because when Thorn comes back, he's not bringing just hunters. He's bringing everyone. Why? Mason asked, his silver eyes wide and confused. Why does the bad man want me? Caspian looked at the boy for a long moment, something like grief crossing his face. Because you're special, pup. Because those eyes of yours mark you as something rare and valuable. He crouched down slowly, painfully, until he was eye level with Mason. And because men like Thorn collect rare things. To keep them safe? Mason asked hopefully. No. Caspian's voice was gentle but honest. To use them. Arya's arms tightened around both children. We're not running. Arya. We're not running, she repeated, louder now. I've been running for 2 years. Running from grief, from the council, from Thorn. I'm done running. And I'm definitely not running from you. You don't understand what you're saying. Don't I? She stood, still holding the twins, meeting those silver eyes with her own. You just displayed more power than I've ever felt in my entire life. You made a dozen wolves submit without even trying. And you're terrified, not of Thorn, not of his hunters, but of yourself. She took a step toward him. You think I don't recognize that fear? I've been afraid of what I am, of what I'm not, of what the pack thinks I should be, every single day since Marcus died. This is different. How? Because you're cursed? Because you killed someone you loved during the full moon? She saw him flinch but pressed on. You think that makes you a monster? You saved us. You protected us. You put yourself between my children and a hunting party because it was the right thing to do. Monsters don't do that, Caspian. You're wrong. Then prove it. She lifted her chin in challenge. Hurt us. Right now. Show me the monster you're so sure you are. Silence fell between them, heavy and charged. Caspian stared at her like she was insane, his jaw working, his hands curling into fists. And then, slowly, he reached out and touched Mason's cheek with one blood-stained finger. The gesture was impossibly gentle. I can't protect you, he said quietly. Not from Thorn, not from the council, and definitely not from myself. Then help us protect ourselves. Arya shifted Lily to her other hip, ignoring the way her ribs screamed. You said you've been alone for 3 years. Living in a cave, chained to walls, waiting to die. Is that really what you want? To fade away in the dark with nothing and no one? It's safer. For who? Not for us. We need you. She hesitated, then added softly, maybe you need us too. Caspian's laugh was bitter. You don't know what you're asking. I'm asking for a chance. For all of us. She met his eyes, refusing to back down. Thorn is coming back. You said so yourself. When he does, he's bringing the full might of the Pack Council with him. And they won't just want Mason, they'll want to know who defied them. Who dared to stand against a beta councilman. They'll want my head on a pike. So we make sure they don't get it. Arya took another step closer, near enough now that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. You were the Alpha King. You united 3 packs. You ruled territories that no one else could control. And you're telling me you can't find a way to protect 1 Omega and 2 pups? Something shifted in his expression. Not quite hope, he was too broken for hope. But maybe something close. Maybe the memory of what hope had felt like when he still believed in such things. 23 days, he said finally. That's how long we have until the full moon. Until I become something you don't want anywhere near those children. Then we have 23 days to figure this out. And if we can't? Arya smiled, and it was fierce and determined and just a little bit desperate. Then we'll figure that out too. For a long moment, Caspian just looked at her. Really looked at her, the way he had that first night, like he was reading a story written in her bones. And whatever he saw there must have been enough, because he nodded once. 23 days, he repeated. 23 days, she agreed. Behind them, completely unaware of the impossible task they'd just taken on, Mason tugged on Caspian's torn sleeve. Does this mean you're staying with us? Caspian's expression softened, just slightly. For now, pup. For now. Good. Mason smiled, his silver eyes gleaming in the morning light. I like you. You're not as scary as you think you are. And despite everything, despite the blood and the fight and the impossible odds stacked against them, Caspian laughed. It was rough, rusty, like he'd forgotten how. But it was real. Come on, he said, straightening with visible effort. We need to prepare. If the council is coming, they'll bring their best warriors. We'll need defenses, supplies, a plan. He looked at Arya. And you need proper training. Can you fight? I'm an Omega. That's not what I asked. Arya thought about the patrol wolves she'd fought off, about the years of protecting her children alone, about the determination that had carried her this far. I can learn. Good. Caspian started toward the cave, then paused. Fair warning, I'm not a gentle teacher. I don't need gentle. I need effective. He smiled again, and this time it reached his eyes. Then we'll get along just fine. As they moved back into the cave, Mason still chattering happily about the fight and Lily finally relaxing enough to doze against Arya's shoulder, none of them noticed the single figure watching from the tree line. A scout. One of Thorne's hunters who'd circled back, who'd seen everything, who'd heard every word. Who now knew exactly where the legendary Alpha King had been hiding for 3 years. And who was already running back to deliver the news that would change everything. The hunt was only beginning. Chapter 4. The first lesson began at dawn. Arya woke to find Caspian already moving through the cave with quiet efficiency, checking the entrance, testing the wind, his movements precise and controlled. The display of dominance from yesterday had left him drained. She could see it in the careful way he moved, the tightness around his eyes, but he refused to rest. We have a week, he said when he noticed her watching. Maybe less. That's how long it'll take Thorne to gather the council and come back with proper force. 7 days to turn you from a fleeing Omega into someone who can actually survive what's coming. Arya sat up slowly, mindful of her healing ribs. You really think I can learn to fight in a week? No. His honesty was brutal. But I can teach you how to survive. How to run when you need to, hide when you must, and strike when there's no other choice. He tossed her a leather strip. Tie your hair back. Can't have it getting in your eyes. The children are still sleeping. And they'll sleep for another hour at least. The pup's fever broke completely during the night. Something almost like pride crossed his face. Tough little thing. His wolf is strong. Like his father. The words slipped out before she could stop them, and pain lanced through her chest. 2 years, and it still hurt to think about Marcus. Still hurt to remember the man who'd loved her, protected her, died for her. Caspian's expression softened. Tell me about him. What? Your mate. If we're going to work together, I need to understand what drives you. What you're fighting for. He gestured to the cave entrance. And you need to move. Can't train standing still. Arya followed him outside, into the cool morning air. The forest stretched below them, peaceful and beautiful and completely unaware of the storm gathering on the horizon. Caspian led her to a flat area near the cave, worn smooth by what must have been years of practice. His name was Marcus, she said quietly, accepting the wooden practice staff he handed her. We were childhood friends. He wasn't like the other males, didn't care that I was an Omega, didn't try to use it against me. When we bonded, everyone said he was throwing away his potential. That he could have had someone stronger, more valuable. But he chose you anyway. Caspian moved into a fighting stance, his own staff held loosely. That says everything about what you're worth. The words hit harder than they should have. He died protecting me. There was a rogue attack, 3 years ago. They came at night, targeting the Omegas because we're easy prey. Marcus fought them off while I ran with the twins. They were just babies then. By the time I got help. Her voice cracked. By the time I got back, he was gone. Caspian was quiet for a long moment. Then, strike at me. What? You're angry. Grieving. Guilty. His silver eyes were too knowing, too perceptive. Use it. Strike at me. Arya swung the staff, putting all her pain behind it. Caspian blocked it easily, the wood cracking together with a sharp report. Again. She struck again. And again. Each time, he deflected, redirected, his movements minimal and precise. But he never retreated. Never made her feel weak for trying. The council blamed you for his death, he said, not a question. They said I should have fought with him. That a proper mate wouldn't have run. Arya's next strike came harder, faster. They said if I'd been stronger, if I'd been more useful, maybe he would have survived. They were wrong. Were they? She spun, trying to catch him off guard. He sidestepped smoothly. I ran. I saved myself and the babies and left him to die alone. What kind of mate does that? The kind who survives. Caspian caught her staff mid-strike, holding it firm. The kind who makes the hard choice even when it destroys her. The kind who carries that guilt for years because the alternative, letting those pups die, was unthinkable. He released the staff. Your mate didn't die because you were weak. He died because he loved you enough to make the same choice you made. To save what mattered most. Tears burned Arya's eyes. You don't understand. Don't I? His laugh was bitter. Let me tell you about Elena. My promised mate, chosen by the council when I took the throne. She was beautiful, intelligent, perfect in every way. I thought, he stopped, his jaw working. I thought we'd build something real. Something that mattered. What happened? She was working with a dark witch named Morgana. They wanted my alpha power, not to share it, but to steal it completely. The curse was supposed to kill me, drain my strength while I died. He touched the silver marks on his neck, his fingers tracing the patterns. But I was stronger than they expected. Instead of dying, I became this. Something that lives in the space between man and monster. Arya's breath caught. She betrayed you. She tried to murder me. His voice was flat, emotionless. During the mating ceremony, of all times. In front of the entire pack, she performed the ritual that was supposed to bind us together, and instead, it poisoned me. The only reason I survived was because my beta, Thomas, realized what was happening and broke the circle. The magic rebounded, killed Elena instantly. And Thomas? Pain flashed across Caspian's face. Died 3 months later, during my first full moon transformation. I tore his throat out while he was trying to talk me down. He was my oldest friend, my brother in every way that mattered, and I killed him because I couldn't control the beast. The silence that followed was heavy with shared grief. 2 people who'd lost everything. 2 wolves who'd been broken by betrayal and blood. I'm sorry, Arya whispered. Don't be. I chose this exile. Chose to live alone rather than risk hurting anyone else. He met her eyes. But you didn't choose your isolation. It was forced on you by a pack too blind to see your worth. Worth. She laughed bitterly. I'm a widowed Omega with twin pups and a beta councilman who wants to claim me like property. What worth is there in that? More than you know. Caspian moved closer, near enough that she could feel the heat of him. You fled rather than accept a forced bond. You protected your children even when it meant losing everything. You walked into a cursed cave with a stranger rather than return to abuse. His hand lifted, hovering near her face but not quite touching. You stood up to me when I tried to push you away. That takes courage most wolves never find. Arya's wolf stirred, responding to his proximity in ways it hadn't since Marcus died. A flutter of awareness, of interest, of something that felt dangerously close to attraction. She stepped back quickly, her heart pounding. I can't, the words tangled on her tongue. My mate is gone. Caspian's voice was gentle but firm. And he'd want you to live, not just survive. There's a difference. Is there? She challenged. You've been surviving in this cave for 3 years. Alone, isolated, waiting to die. Is that living? He smiled sadly. Touché. It seems we're both experts at punishing ourselves for crimes that aren't our fault. A small voice called from inside the cave. Mama? The moment shattered like glass. Arya turned, grateful for the interruption, and found Mason standing at the entrance, his silver eyes bright with curiosity. Behind him, Lily clutched her worn stuffed rabbit, looking more alert than she had in days. You're up early, Pups, Caspian said, his entire demeanor shifting. The broken king disappeared, replaced by someone patient and almost warm. Feeling better? My throat doesn't hurt anymore, Mason announced proudly. And I'm hungry. Really, really hungry. That's a good sign. Means your wolf is healing properly. Caspian gestured toward the cave. Come on. Let's see what we can find for breakfast. Then maybe I can show you something interesting. The twins' faces lit up, and they followed him inside with the easy trust of children who hadn't yet learned that the world was full of wolves who would hurt them. Arya trailed behind, her heart doing something complicated in her chest as she watched Caspian move around the cave, preparing food with the same careful precision he'd shown when making Mason's medicine. He was gentle with them. Patient. Answering Mason's endless questions without irritation, helping Lily when her small hands couldn't manage the dried fruit he'd offered. It was so different from how the Silvermoon males had treated them, like inconvenient burdens, obstacles to Arya's value as a potential mate. Why do you live in a cave? Mason asked around a mouthful of food. Mason, manners, Arya chided gently. But Caspian just smiled. It's all right. He's curious. He settled on the floor across from the twins, making himself smaller, less intimidating. I live here because sometimes people need space from the world. Time to think, to heal, to figure things out. Are you sad? Lily's voice was soft, concerned. Sometimes, Caspian admitted. But less than I was yesterday. Because we're here? Maybe. His eyes found Arya's, holding her gaze. Maybe it's nice to have company again. To remember what it's like to have someone to talk to. Mason finished his food and bounced to his feet. You said you'd show us something interesting. So I did. Caspian stood, groaning slightly. All right, pup. But we're not going far. Your mother would skin me alive if I let anything happen to you. I would, Arya confirmed. He led them outside, to the edge of the flat area where Arya had practiced earlier. The forest spread out below them, and in the early morning light, Arya could see animal tracks in the soft earth, deer, rabbit, even what looked like a fox. Hunting lesson, Caspian announced. First rule, always know your territory. See those tracks? He pointed to the rabbit prints. What do they tell you? Mason crouched down, studying them with intense concentration. That a rabbit was here? Good start. But look closer. How fresh are they? Mason touched the edge of one print carefully. Recent? Very recent. Within the last hour. Caspian ruffled the boy's hair. Which means if you're hunting, you don't waste time on old tracks. You find the fresh ones and follow them. He glanced at Arya. In a few years, those silver eyes of his will make him a natural leader. But first, he needs to learn how to survive on his own. He's 3, Arya protested weakly. Which is exactly when training should start. The earlier he learns, the better chance he has of surviving what's coming. Caspian's expression grew serious. Thorn won't be the last wolf who wants to claim him. Those eyes make him valuable, and vulnerability. The reminder of why they were here, why Mason was in danger at all, settled over Arya like a cold weight. She watched her son study the tracks with Caspian, watched Lily chase a butterfly at the cave entrance, and felt her heart crack a little more. They deserved better than this. Better than running, hiding, training for a war that never should have been theirs to fight. You're thinking too loud, Caspian said quietly, moving to stand beside her while Mason continued his examination of the tracks. I'm thinking about all the things my children won't have. Stability. Safety. A pack to call home. They have you. That's more than many pups get. He was quiet for a moment. My parents died when I was young. Alpha bloodline, killed in a territorial dispute. I was raised by the pack council, groomed to lead before I even understood what leadership meant. They taught me strategy, combat, politics, everything except how to just be a child. Is that why you're so good with them? Arya gestured to where Mason was now showing Lily the tracks, explaining them in the serious voice of a 3-year-old playing teacher. Because you remember what you missed? Maybe. Caspian's smile was sad. Or maybe because with them, I can pretend I'm not the broken thing living in a cave. I'm just someone trying to help. Arya's wolf stirred again, responding to the pain in his voice. Without thinking, she touched his arm, just a brief contact, her fingers against his scarred skin. You're not broken. You keep saying that. Because it's true. She pulled her hand back, suddenly aware of how warm he was, how solid. How her wolf wanted to lean closer, to seek comfort in his presence. Damaged, maybe. Cursed, definitely. But not broken. Broken things don't get up every morning and choose to keep fighting. They don't save strangers or teach children or what? His voice had dropped, rougher now. Or make me feel like maybe I'm not broken either. The confession hung between them, raw and vulnerable. Caspian stared at her like he was seeing something he'd thought lost forever, and Arya's heart raced with fear and something that felt dangerously like hope. Arya. I know. She stepped back, needing distance. I know this is impossible. I know we're from different worlds, that you're cursed, that I'm still grieving, that we have a week before Thorn comes back with an army. I know all of that. Then why does it feel like none of it matters? The question was barely a whisper, but it crashed over her like a wave. Because he was right. In the week since she'd stumbled bleeding into his cave, something had shifted. Something fundamental and terrifying and completely undeniable. Her wolf recognized him. Not as a replacement for Marcus, nothing could replace her first mate, but as something new. Something powerful and protective and achingly lonely. Something that called to the lonely parts of her own soul. I don't know, she admitted. But it scares me. Good. Caspian's smile was crooked, almost self-deprecating. Because you terrify me. I'm an Omega. You're a force of nature disguised as an Omega. He turned to face her fully, his silver eyes intense. You barged into my exile, disrupted 3 years of carefully maintained isolation, and made me remember what it feels like to want to protect something other than my own miserable existence. Do you have any idea how dangerous that is? For who? For both of us. He took a step closer, and she could feel the pull of him, the magnetic draw of an alpha whose power called to her wolf. I haven't felt human in 3 years, Arya. Haven't wanted to. Haven't seen the point when every month I turn into a monster that would happily tear apart anyone who got too close. But then you showed up, bleeding and defiant and absolutely refusing to be afraid of me. And suddenly, he stopped, his jaw working. Suddenly I want things I have no right to want. Suddenly exile feels less like protection and more like cowardice. Arya's breath caught. What are you saying? I'm saying that for the first time in 3 years, I want to live instead of just survive. I want to see what happens next. He reached out slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, and cupped her face with one scarred hand. I want to be more than the monster in the cave. His touch was gentle despite the violence those hands had committed. Arya's wolf surged forward, pressing against her skin, wanting desperately to lean into that warmth. But guilt rose up just as fast, sharp and bitter. Marcus would want you to be happy. Caspian's thumb brushed her cheekbone, infinitely careful. I didn't know him, but I know what it means to truly love someone. To want their happiness even after you're gone. Especially then. How can you know that? Because I loved Thomas like a brother, and when I killed him, the last thing he said was, "Not your fault." His voice cracked. Even dying by my hand, he tried to absolve me. That's what real love does, it protects, even from the grave. Tears spilled down Arya's cheeks. I don't know how to do this. Neither do I. His smile was gentle, understanding. So maybe we figure it out together. No promises, no expectations. Just 2 broken wolves trying to find their way back to something resembling whole. What if we can't? Then at least we tried. He released her face, stepping back to give her space. But for what it's worth, you've already done the impossible. You made me care about surviving past the next full moon. That's more than I've managed in 3 years. Before Arya could respond, Mason's excited voice cut through the moment. Mama. Caspian. Come look. I found more tracks. The spell broke. Caspian turned toward the boy, his expression shifting back to patient teacher, and Arya was left trying to catch her breath and understand what had just happened. She was attracted to him. Despite everything, the curse, the danger, the impossible situation, she was attracted to the broken Alpha King who lived in a cave and treated her children with more kindness than their own pack had shown. And more terrifying than that, her wolf approved. For the first time since Marcus died, her wolf was truly awake. Alert. Interested in someone other than her pups. It pressed against her skin, wanting to shift, to run, to hunt beside the powerful Alpha who smelled like winter and wild things. Mama? Lily tugged on her dress. Are you okay? Arya crouched down, pulling her daughter close. I'm fine, baby. Just thinking. About Caspian? What makes you say that? Lily's small face was serious, wise beyond her years. You look at him the way you used to look at Daddy. Like he makes you feel safe. Out of the mouths of children. Arya kissed her daughter's forehead, emotion clogging her throat. You're too smart for your own good. Mason says Caspian is going to protect us from the bad wolves. Mason talks a lot. But he's right, isn't he? Lily's eyes, so like Marcus's, a warm brown that held all the innocence of childhood, searched her face. Caspian won't let them hurt us. Arya looked over at where Caspian was teaching Mason to identify different animal tracks, his patience endless, his movements careful. He'd gone from wanting them gone by dawn to teaching her son hunting skills. From isolated exile to reluctant protector. From broken king to something that almost looked like hope. No, she said softly. He won't let them hurt us. Even if it cost him everything. They spent the day in cautious domesticity. Caspian showed Mason and Lily how to identify edible plants, how to find water, how to read the forest's moods. Arya practiced with the staff until her arms shook, until Caspian finally called a halt and made her rest. As evening approached and the twins wore themselves out playing near the cave entrance, Arya found herself sitting beside Caspian at the fire, comfortable silence stretching between them. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For giving us a chance. For not turning us away when you could have. Caspian was quiet for a long moment, staring into the flames. I told you I haven't felt human in years. I remember. I meant it. He turned to look at her, his silver eyes reflecting the firelight. 3 years of isolation, of chaining myself to walls during full moons, of waking up covered in blood with no memory of what I'd done. 3 years of wanting to die but being too afraid of what I'd become to go through with it. Caspian. Let me finish. His voice was rough. I'd forgotten what it felt like to have purpose beyond simple survival. Forgotten what it meant to want to see tomorrow. But then you showed up with your bleeding side and your fierce determination and your children who look at me like I'm something other than a monster. He reached out, taking her hand carefully. You gave me something I thought I'd lost forever. You reminded me what it feels like to be human. Aria's fingers curled around his, her heart doing complicated things in her chest. What if I can't be what you need? What if you already are? He squeezed gently. I'm not asking for forever, Aria. I'm not even asking for tomorrow. I'm just asking if maybe, for right now, we can both stop running from what we feel. She looked at their joined hands, hers small and delicate, his large and scarred. Two people broken by different paths, finding something like solace in shared pain. I'm terrified, she whispered. So am I. I don't know how to do this without feeling like I'm betraying Marcus. Then don't do it for me. Caspian's thumb brushed across her knuckles. Do it for yourself. Because you deserve to feel something other than grief and fear. Because your mate would want you to live, not just exist. Aria thought about Marcus. About the man who'd loved her despite pack prejudice, who'd died protecting her, who'd made her promise with his last breath to take care of their children and herself. He'd never said, don't love again. Never asked her to spend the rest of her life alone. He just asked her to live. Okay, she breathed. Okay? Okay. She met Caspian's eyes, saw the hope and fear warring there. No promises. No expectations. Just this. Whatever this is. The smile that crossed his face was brilliant, transforming him from broken exile to something that almost looked like the king he'd been. Whatever this is, he agreed. And when he leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, when his lips brushed hers with a gentleness that contradicted everything about his size and scars, Aria felt her wolf sing for the first time in 2 years. Not a replacement. Not a betrayal. Just a beginning. Behind them, carefully hidden in the shadows of the cave entrance, Mason and Lily exchanged glances. Told you, Mason whispered smugly. You tell everyone everything, Lily whispered back. But both children smiled, seeing their mother happy for the first time in memory. Unaware that in 4 days, Thorn would return with the full pack council. Unaware that the fragile peace they'd found was about to be shattered. Unaware that the real battle hadn't even begun. Chapter 5. For days of fragile peace shattered with the sound of howls at dawn. Aria jolted awake, her wolf screaming danger before her human mind fully processed the sound. Beside her on the furs, the twins stirred, and she pressed a hand over Mason's mouth before he could speak, her heart hammering against her ribs. Caspian was already moving, a shadow detaching from the cave wall where he'd been keeping watch. He reached them in 3 silent strides, his silver eyes hard and focused. How many? Aria whispered. 20. Maybe more. His jaw was tight. Council colors. This isn't just Thorn anymore. The howls came again, closer now, echoing off the mountain stone. Not a hunting call, a summoning. The kind of formal announcement that preceded official pack business. The kind that preceded executions. Stay here, Caspian commanded, already pulling on his cloak. No matter what happens, stay in this cave with the pups. Like hell. Aria stood, wrapping a blanket around the twins. If they're here for us, hiding won't help. We face this together. Aria. Together. Her voice was steel. That was the deal, remember? We stop running. Something fierce flashed in his eyes, pride, maybe, or fear, or both tangled together. He nodded once, then moved to the cave entrance, his massive frame blocking most of the morning light. The hunting party had arranged itself in a formal semicircle at the base of the cave, but this time it wasn't just Silvermoon wolves. Arya recognized the colors of 3 different packs: Silvermoon's gray and silver, Ironwood's brown and gold, and Nightshade's black and green. And at the center, flanked by wolves in the deep crimson of the pack council, stood Thorn. He looked different than he had 4 days ago. More polished, more confident, the bruises from his fight with Caspian carefully hidden beneath expensive clothes. But his eyes were the same, cold, calculating, fixed on the cave entrance with predatory focus. Beside him stood a wolf Arya had only seen once before, during Marcus's funeral. Marcus Stoneheart, head councilman of the territorial packs, his silver hair and hard expression radiating the kind of authority that made even alphas nervous. And behind them, a dozen more wolves in enforcement black, the council's personal army, trained to handle threats to pack law. This wasn't a hunting party. This was a trial. "Come out, stranger," Stoneheart's voice rang out, formal and cold. "You stand accused of violating pack law. Come out and face judgment." Caspian stepped into the sunlight, and Arya heard several wolves suck in sharp breaths. He'd thrown back his hood, revealing his face fully for the first time. The silver marks on his neck caught the morning light, ancient and undeniable. Royal marks. Alpha King marks. But Stoneheart's expression didn't change. Either he didn't recognize them, or he was choosing not to. "You are accused of harboring a runaway," Omega claimed under proper ceremony. "You are accused of interfering with pack law. You are accused of assaulting a beta councilman during his lawful duties." His eyes were flint. "How do you answer these charges?" "I answer that your laws are wrong." Caspian's voice carried easily down the mountain. "And your beta is a liar." Thorn's smile was sharp. Bold words from a cave dweller. "Tell me, stranger, by what authority do you declare pack law wrong?" "By the authority of someone who's seen what your laws do to those without power to fight them." Caspian's hands curled into fists. "You call the Omega a runaway, as if she committed a crime. But she rejected a forced bond. That's her right." "Omegas don't have rights," Stoneheart said flatly. "They have roles. Places in the pack hierarchy determined by nature itself. Nature didn't make your hierarchy. Wolves did." Caspian took a step forward, and several enforcement wolves shifted nervously. "And wolves can unmake it just as easily." "Heresy," someone muttered from the crowd. "Truth," Caspian shot back. "But you're not here to debate philosophy. You're here because Thorn wants his pride back, and you're willing to call it justice." Stoneheart's expression hardened. "Surrender the Omega and the Pups. Now. Or face the consequences of defying the council." "No." The word hung in the air like a thrown blade. Arya's breath caught, her wolf surging with something that felt dangerously like hope. He was standing against them. Against all of them. For her. Thorn stepped forward, his smile widening. "Perhaps the stranger needs motivation to comply." He gestured, and 2 enforcement wolves dragged something forward, a wooden post, already prepared. "Pack law is clear. Those who harbor criminals become criminals themselves. The penalty is death by silver." Silver. The one substance that could truly kill a wolf, that burned through flesh and prevented healing. Arya's hands tightened on the twins, her heart hammering. "You have until sunset tomorrow," Stoneheart continued. "Surrender the Omega and Pups, or we execute you for violations of pack law. The council has spoken. Then the council is corrupt." Caspian's voice dropped to something dangerous. "And I reject your authority." The statement sent ripples through the assembled wolves. You didn't reject council authority. You didn't question pack law. To do so was to declare yourself rogue, outside pack protection, outside society, fair game for any wolf who wanted to challenge you. It was suicide. Stoneheart's eyes narrowed. You reject the council? Then you reject pack law itself. You declare yourself rogue. If your law says that Omega belongs to Thorn against her will, then yes. I reject it completely. So be it. Stoneheart's voice was final. At sunset tomorrow, you die. And when you're dead, we take the Omega and Pups anyway. Your sacrifice will mean nothing. They turned to leave, the hunting party moving with military precision. But Thorn lingered, his eyes finding Arya in the cave entrance. She'd stepped forward without meaning to, unable to stay hidden while Caspian faced death for her sake. "Hello, Omega," Thorn called out, his voice sickeningly pleasant. "I see you're still dragging those brats around. Such a shame. But don't worry, once the stranger is dead and you're properly claimed, we'll send them somewhere they can be useful. The Silverfang orphanage, perhaps. I hear they're always looking for young blood." Beside Arya, Mason whimpered. And something in that sound, fear, helplessness, the cry of a child who'd heard too many threats, broke something fundamental in Arya's chest. Her wolf surged forward, no longer content to hide and cower. Power flooded through her, unexpected and fierce, and she felt her eyes flash with inner light. "You will never touch my children," she snarled, her voice carrying the weight of absolute conviction. "I'd rather die first." Thorn's smile faltered. Just for a second, he looked uncertain, like he'd forgotten that cornered wolves were the most dangerous. Then his expression hardened. "We'll see, Omega. We'll see." He turned to follow the council, but paused. "Oh, and stranger? When I claim her, and I will claim her, I'm going to make sure she remembers you. Remembers how you died for nothing. How your sacrifice was meaningless." Then they were gone, disappearing into the forest, leaving only trampled earth and the promise of violence behind. Caspian stood absolutely still for a long moment, staring after them. Then his shoulders sagged, and Arya saw the exhaustion beneath the bravado, the fear he'd been hiding. "You shouldn't have shown yourself," he said quietly, not turning around. "Now they know you're still here. Know you're choosing to stay. Good." Arya moved to stand beside him, the twins clinging to her dress. "Let them know. I'm done hiding who I am and what I choose. They're going to kill me tomorrow. Then we have until tomorrow to find another way." Finally, he looked at her, and the pain in his silver eyes was staggering. "There is no other way, Arya. Even if I fight, even if I somehow win against 20 wolves and council enforcement, they'll just come back with more. And more. Until eventually, they win. So we run. Where?" His laugh was bitter. "There's nowhere in pack territory they can't reach. And beyond the borders." He shook his head. "Rogues don't survive long alone. Especially not an Omega with 2 small pups. Then we fight. You can barely hold a practice staff without your ribs screaming. The pups are children. And he stopped, his jaw working. "In 20 days, I become the monster. Even if we somehow survive the council, even if we run far enough that they can't find us, eventually the full moon comes. And I won't be able to protect you from myself." Arya wanted to argue, wanted to find the words that would make this better, that would fix the impossible situation they'd found themselves in. But before she could speak, Mason tugged on her dress. "Mama? What's the Silverfang orphanage?" The question hit like a physical blow. Arya knelt down, pulling both children close. "It's nowhere you're going, baby. I promise." "But the bad man said." "The bad man says a lot of things. None of them matter." She kissed his forehead, then Lily's, her heart breaking. "You're my children. Mine. And no one is taking you anywhere." Lily's small hand touched Arya's face. "Are they going to hurt Caspian?" "Not if I can help it. But they have lots of wolves. And we only have us." Out of the mouths of children. Arya looked up at Caspian, saw the resignation in his expression, the acceptance of defeat. He'd already decided to die. Had already written himself off as a lost cause. But Arya hadn't survived 2 years of grief and council pressure and Thorn's machinations just to give up now. Inside, she said firmly, standing. Everyone inside. Now. Caspian frowned. Arya. Now. She used her best mother voice, the one that brooked no argument. We're not done yet. Not by a long shot. Something in her tone must have reached him, because he followed her back into the cave without protest. Arya settled the twins near the fire with dried fruit and water, then turned to Caspian with determined eyes. You said you've been here 3 years. Yes. Living in this cave. Alone. With nothing but time to think. Where are you going with this? You were researching something. Before you exiled yourself. Before the curse took hold completely. She moved toward the back of the cave, where she'd noticed the books stacked carefully. You were looking for a cure. Caspian's expression shuddered. There is no cure. Isn't there? Arya pulled out one of the books, its leather cover worn from frequent handling. I've been watching you. The way you organize things, the herbs you knew to use for Mason, the precision with which you've set up this cave. You're not just surviving here, you're studying. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. She opened the book, found pages covered in cramped handwriting. Notes. Observations. Research that spanned years. Show me. For a long moment, she thought he'd refuse. Then something in his expression cracked, and he moved to her side, taking the book with gentle hands. I was obsessed, he admitted quietly. After Thomas died, after I realized what I'd become, I spent every waking moment looking for a way to break the curse. I traveled to every witch, every healer, every scholar who might have answers. He flipped through pages filled with diagrams, ritual circles, ancient text. The curse is blood magic. Dark, powerful, and nearly impossible to break. Nearly? There's one way. His finger traced a passage written in old script. A counter-ritual. It requires the willing sacrifice of a true mate bond, the kind that only happens once in a lifetime. The kind where souls recognize each other. Arya's breath caught. Like what you thought you had with Elena. Like what I would never have again. His voice was flat. Elena wasn't my true mate. She was chosen by the council, arranged for political purposes. There was no bond, no recognition. Just expectation. He closed the book. And even if there was someone out there who could be my true mate, why would they sacrifice themselves for a cursed king living in a cave? Maybe because you're worth saving. He looked at her, really looked at her, and something passed between them. Something electric and terrifying and completely impossible to ignore. Her wolf surged forward, pressing against her skin, and for a moment, just a moment, Arya felt it. Recognition. Not the bond she'd shared with Marcus, comfortable and steady and built on years of friendship. This was something else. Something that felt like lightning in her veins, like her wolf had been sleeping and suddenly woke up screaming mine. No, Caspian whispered, reading it in her expression. Don't even think it. Why not? Because I won't let you die for me. Won't let you sacrifice yourself just to break a curse that might not even be breakable. Isn't that my choice? Not when it kills you. His voice cracked. I've already lost everyone I ever cared about. Thomas, my pack, my entire life. I won't add you to that list. I won't. A scream cut through his words. High-pitched, terrified, utterly childlike. They spun toward the twins, and Arya's heart stopped. Mason was shifting. Not a full transformation, he was too young, too small, his wolf not developed enough for complete change. But his hands had sprouted claws, his eyes were blazing silver, and around him, the very air seemed to shimmer with power that shouldn't exist in a 3-year-old pup. Ancient power. Bloodline power. Mama. Lily screamed, pressing herself against the cave wall, terrified of her own brother. Arya rushed forward, but Caspian was faster. He dropped to his knees in front of Mason, his hands gentle despite the danger, and spoke in a voice that was pure alpha command. Breathe, Pup. You're safe. No one's going to hurt you. Breathe. Mason's silver eyes were wild with panic, his small body shaking. I'm scared. I'm scared. Make it stop. I know. I know you're scared. Caspian's voice was infinitely patient. But you need to breathe. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Can you do that for me? Slowly, shakily, Mason obeyed. And as he breathed, as Caspian talked him through it with calm authority, the claws retracted. The shimmer faded. The 3-year-old pup returned, leaving only a terrified little boy who launched himself at his mother the moment he could move. Arya caught him, holding tight, her heart hammering. You're okay. You're okay, baby. I've got you. But over Mason's head, she met Caspian's eyes and saw shock. Real, genuine shock. What was that? She whispered. Silverfang. His voice was barely audible. That power signature, I've only read about it in old texts. The Silverfang bloodline was supposed to be extinct. What does that mean? It means your son isn't just alpha-born. Caspian stood slowly, his expression grim. He's descended from the original alpha line. The wolves who first learned to shift, who created pack law, who shaped our entire species. He ran a hand through his hair. It means he's more valuable than I thought. And Thorn knows it. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Thorn's interest in Mason. His insistence on claiming Arya despite her rejection. His willingness to bring the full council down on one cave-dwelling stranger. He wants to control Mason, Arya said numbly. Use him as a puppet. A legitimate heir to claim authority over all the packs. Not just Mason. Caspian moved to the cave entrance, staring out at the forest. With Silverfang blood, your son could theoretically unite every pack in the territory under one banner. Could reshape pack law itself. He's not just valuable, he's the key to absolute power. Which is why Thorn will never stop hunting him. No. Caspian's hands curled into fists. He'll burn down the entire territory before he gives up that prize. Silence fell, heavy and suffocating. Arya held both children close, feeling them tremble against her, and knew with devastating certainty that they were out of options. They couldn't run. Couldn't hide. Couldn't fight. Unless. The cure, she said quietly. Arya. The cure requires a true mate bond. A willing sacrifice. She stood, still holding the twins, her eyes meeting Caspian's. You said you felt it. When Thomas died. The moment you realized you'd killed him, you wanted to die too. That was grief. That was love. The kind that makes sacrifice meaningful. She moved closer, her wolf singing with recognition, with certainty that shouldn't exist but did. You've been alone for 3 years. Chained yourself to walls, accepted death, given up on everything except simple survival. But then we showed up, and something changed. You said it yourself, you felt human again. That doesn't mean. Doesn't it? She was close enough now to feel his breath, to see the silver marks on his neck, to watch his eyes dilate with something that looked like hope and terror combined. My wolf recognizes you, Caspian. Not as a replacement for Marcus, not as a second choice, but as something true. Something real. Something that makes my soul wake up and scream mine even though we've known each other less than a week. You're grieving. Desperate. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. Arya's voice was steady, certain. I'm saying I choose you. I'm saying that if there's a chance, any chance, to break your curse and save my children and build something worth living for, then I'm taking it. She lifted her chin in challenge. I'm saying that maybe, just maybe, the moon didn't bring me to your cave by accident. Maybe this was always meant to happen. Caspian stared at her like she'd grown a second head. You want to perform a blood ritual to break a dark curse, based on a bond we've had less than a week to develop, while a corrupt pack council waits outside to execute me at sunset tomorrow? Yes. That's insane. Probably. She smiled, fierce and determined. But I've been playing by pack rules my entire life, and it's gotten me nothing but pain. So maybe it's time to break some rules. For a long moment, Caspian was silent. Then, impossibly, he laughed, a real laugh, full of genuine humor and disbelief and something that might have been joy. You're absolutely mad, he said. Is that a yes? That's a we're both probably going to die. But there's a chance we won't. A very small chance. I'll take it. Arya held out her hand. Together? Caspian looked at her hand, at her face, at the two children watching them with wide, hopeful eyes. Then he took her hand, his fingers warm and rough against hers. Together, he agreed. And somewhere deep in the forest, Thorn smiled and made his final plans. Not knowing that the Broken King and the fleeing Omega had just decided to fight back. Not knowing that Silverfang blood ran in Mason's veins. Not knowing that tomorrow wouldn't end the way anyone expected. The real battle was only beginning. Chapter 6. The sun set like blood across the mountain, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold that promised violence. Arya watched it sink below the horizon from the cave entrance, her hand pressed against the ancient stone, feeling the thrum of power that seemed to pulse through the rock itself. Behind her, Caspian moved with controlled urgency, checking the silver chains embedded in the deepest chamber, testing their strength with hands that already trembled. 4 hours, he said quietly. Maybe less. Once the moon rises fully, I won't be able to stop it. Then we don't stop it. Arya turned to face him, her jaw set. We use it. Arya. No. She crossed to him, stepping over the supplies they'd been preparing, water, dried food, weapons they both knew she could barely use. No more arguments. We decided this together. We performed the ritual. That was before the council moved their timeline. Caspian gestured toward the cave entrance, where they could hear wolves gathering in the darkness. Thorn had brought reinforcements, the entire siege force, positioned and waiting. They're not waiting until sunset tomorrow. They're attacking tonight, during the transformation. They know I'll be vulnerable. Or they think you will be. Arya pulled out the leather-bound journal they'd been studying, its pages marked with ritual circles and ancient text. But we're not giving them what they expect. Caspian's laugh was bitter. You're asking me to perform a blood ritual during a full moon transformation while fighting off a council siege. Do you understand how many ways this can go wrong? Do you understand how many ways it can go right? Before he could answer, a small voice called from deeper in the cave. Mama? What's happening? Lily stood in the entrance to the inner chamber where Arya had told the twins to wait, her small face pale with fear. Behind her, Mason clutched his stuffed rabbit, the one Arya had somehow managed to save during their flight from Silvermoon. Both children looked terrified. Arya's heart cracked. They shouldn't be here. Shouldn't be witnessing this. Shouldn't have to grow up knowing that their mother had risked everything on impossible magic and desperate hope. But they were here. And there was no other choice. Come here, babies. Arya knelt, opening her arms. Both children ran to her, pressing close, and she held them tight. Listen to me. Something scary is going to happen tonight. Caspian is going to change, and there might be fighting, and it's going to be loud and frightening. Is he going to be okay? Mason's silver eyes were huge in his small face. I'm going to make sure of it. Arya kissed his forehead, then Lily's. But I need you both to be brave. Can you do that? They nodded, though Lily was crying silently. There's a tunnel, Caspian said roughly, moving to the back of the chamber. He pressed against a section of wall, and stone ground against stone as a hidden passage revealed itself. It leads down through the mountain. If you follow it all the way, you'll come out near the river, miles from here. There's a cache of supplies at the exit, enough for several days. We're not running, Arya said flatly. The pups are. His voice was hard, leaving no room for argument. Whatever happens tonight, they can't be here. The council wants Mason, they'll do anything to get him. And when I transform. He stopped, his jaw working. I won't be able to tell friend from foe. Won't be able to control what the beast does. They need to be far away from me. Arya wanted to argue, wanted to insist they all stay together, but deep down she knew he was right. Mason and Lily couldn't be here for what was coming. Couldn't witness their mother attempting blood magic with a cursed king while a pack siege raged around them. I'll take them, a voice said from the shadows. Arya spun, her wolf surging to the surface, only to freeze as a figure stepped into the firelight. An old woman, hunched with age, her eyes clouded but somehow still sharp. She wore the traditional robes of a pack shaman, marked with symbols that predated modern pack law. Who? Caspian moved between her and the children, his body already starting to change, muscles rippling beneath his skin. Peace, Alpha King. The old woman's voice was surprisingly strong. I mean no harm to you or yours. I'm Alara, former shaman of the Silvermoon Pack. I've been watching this cave for 3 years, waiting. Waiting for what? Arya demanded. For you. Alara's clouded eyes found Arya's face. For the Luna who would find her way to the Broken King. For the moment when the moon's plan would finally unfold. Caspian's growl was low, dangerous. If this is some council trick. The council abandoned me years ago when I refused to support their corruption. Alara moved forward carefully, her hands empty and open. I've been living as a hermit in these mountains, gathering herbs, keeping the old ways alive. When I felt Luna power wake for the first time in 3 years, I knew it was time. Luna power? Arya's voice was barely a whisper. You don't know? Alara's expression was pitying. Child, you're not a common Omega. You never were. Your wolf has been sleeping, suppressed by grief and council manipulation, but tonight. She gestured toward the rising moon, just barely visible through the cave entrance. Tonight she wakes fully. And when she does, the packs will finally understand what they tried to destroy. I don't understand. You will. Alara held out her hands to the children. Come, little ones. I'll take you somewhere safe. Somewhere the bad wolves can't find you. Your mother has important work to do. Mason looked up at Arya, his silver eyes questioning. You're coming back, right? I'm coming back. Arya forced certainty into her voice. I promise. That's what Daddy said. Lily's voice was so small, so scared. Before he didn't. The words hit like a blade between Arya's ribs. She pulled both children close one last time, breathing in their scent, memorizing the feel of them in her arms. I know, baby. I know. But this time is different. This time, I'm fighting for something worth living for. She kissed them both, then gently pushed them toward Alara. The old woman took their hands with surprising gentleness, her expression kind despite her stern features. Be brave, little wolves, Alara said. Your mother is about to change the world. Then she led them into the tunnel, and they disappeared into darkness, taking Arya's heart with them. The moment they were gone, Arya felt it, a shift in the air, a pressure building behind her eyes. The moon was rising. And with it, the curse. Caspian doubled over, his body convulsing, his breathing harsh and labored. Arya, you need to go. No. She moved to his side, her hands finding his shoulders. We're doing this. Now. While you can still understand me. The ritual, it's dangerous. Everything about tonight is dangerous. She pulled the journal close, found the page marked with blood-red ink. The ritual requires 3 things, a circle of power, a willing sacrifice, and the words to bind them together. We have all 3. You don't know if it will work. I know that if we do nothing, you transform into a mindless beast and the council kills us both. I know that Thorn gets Mason and uses him to control every pack in the territory. I know that my children grow up orphans, alone, with no one to protect them. Her voice hardened. And I know that I'd rather die trying to stop that than live with having done nothing. Caspian looked at her, his silver eyes already starting to glow with inhuman light. Why? Why risk everything for a broken king you barely know? Because you're not broken. Arya cupped his face with both hands, feeling the fever heat of transformation burning under his skin. Because my wolf knows yours. Because in 5 days, you've shown my children more kindness than their own pack showed in 2 years. Because, her voice cracked. Because I choose you. Curse and all. Beast and all. I choose this. Something in his expression shattered. Arya. Say yes. Her forehead pressed against his. Say yes, and let me try to save you. Save us. Say yes, and give me permission to offer what I'm offering freely. For one eternal moment, he hesitated. Then, roughly, desperately, he pulled her close and kissed her, hard and urgent and tasting of fear and hope combined. Yes, he breathed against her lips. Yes, damn me. Yes. Arya grabbed the journal and the silver knife Caspian had prepared. The ritual circle was already drawn in the chamber's center, chalk and ash and crushed moonstone, inscribed with symbols that predated written language. She pulled Caspian into its center, both of them kneeling on stone worn smooth by centuries of water and time. Your hand, she said. He offered it without hesitation. The knife was sharp, it took barely any pressure to draw a line across his palm. Blood welled up, dark and gleaming, and Arya felt her wolf surge forward with recognition. Then she cut her own palm, wincing at the sting, and pressed their hands together. Blood mingling, dripping onto the ritual circle, activating symbols that began to glow with pale silver light. Repeat after me, Arya said, reading from the ancient text. By blood freely given. By blood freely given, Caspian echoed, his voice already rougher, more animal than human. By will unbroken. By will unbroken. By souls that recognize. By souls that recognize. The cave shuddered. Outside, wolves howled. The moon crested the mountain peak, and Caspian screamed. The transformation hit him like a hammer blow. His body convulsed, bones breaking and reforming, muscles tearing and rebuilding. Arya held on, their hands still pressed together, her own blood mixing with his as the ritual circle blazed brighter. I offer myself, she gasped out, racing through the final words as Caspian's humanity slipped further away. As mate, as anchor, as the Luna to your alpha. I offer my wolf to balance yours. I offer my strength to hold your darkness. I offer. Power exploded outward from the circle. Not violent. Not destructive. But absolute. Overwhelming. Undeniable. Arya felt it crash through her like a tidal wave, connection, recognition, bond forming so fast and fierce it stole her breath. Her wolf rose to meet it, no longer suppressed, no longer sleeping, roaring to life with power that had been trapped for years. And suddenly she was in Caspian's mind. Not just touching thoughts. Not just feeling emotions. She was there, inside his consciousness as the beast took over, feeling the curse trying to rip away everything human, everything rational, everything that made him Caspian Blackthorn instead of a mindless killer. But she was there too. And her wolf, her Luna wolf, ancient and powerful and born for exactly this moment, wrapped around his consciousness like a shield. I've got you, she thought at him, desperate. I've got you. You're not alone. The beast roared, fighting her, trying to shake her off. But Arya held on, her wolf digging claws into his mind, refusing to let go even as pain lanced through her body. She felt her own transformation beginning, felt her wolf surging forward to meet his, and realized with stunning clarity what Alara had meant. She wasn't an Omega at all. She was Luna-born. Rare as silver eyes in pups. Born to balance alpha power, to anchor it, to turn destructive force into protective strength. Her wolf had been sleeping since Marcus died, not because she was weak, but because there was no alpha powerful enough to wake her. Until Caspian. Until the broken king whose curse was so strong it had nearly destroyed him. Together, they were something else entirely. The transformation completed, but Caspian's beast form wasn't mindless. Not completely. She could feel him in there, fragments of consciousness, awareness, recognition. He knew her. Knew not to hurt her. His massive wolf form stood in the center of the ritual circle, easily twice the size of a normal wolf, his fur midnight black shot through with silver, his eyes blazing with inhuman light. But when those eyes met hers, she saw Caspian looking back. "Can you understand me?" she whispered. The wolf's head dipped once. Not a full nod, the beast was still too strong for that, but acknowledgement. Understanding. "We need to fight," Arya said, her own wolf pushing to the surface. "The council is coming. Thorn is coming. Can you fight with me?" Another dip of the massive head. Then the wolf turned toward the cave entrance, where the sounds of approaching warriors grew louder. Arya shifted. Her wolf emerged faster than it ever had before, power flooding through her body as she transformed. She'd always been small for a wolf, typical for omegas, the pack had said. Weak, they'd whispered. But the wolf that emerged was easily alpha-sized, her fur pure silver, her eyes glowing with the same inner light as Caspian's. Luna-born. Mate bonded to an alpha king. Powerful in her own right. Together, they moved toward the cave entrance. The council's first wave hit them like a storm. 12 enforcement wolves, trained killers in council black, came through the entrance expecting to find a mindless beast and a cowering omega. What they found instead was coordinated fury. Caspian's beast form was massive, powerful, devastating. But he moved with purpose now, with direction, following Arya's thoughts through their bond. She felt his mind in hers, felt their wolves moving as one unit, and understood finally what it meant to be truly mated. Not just two wolves fighting together. One force, expressed through two bodies. An enforcement wolf lunged at Arya. She dodged, using her smaller size and speed to dart beneath its guard, her teeth finding its throat. Not a killing blow, she wasn't trying to kill, just disable. The wolf went down, whimpering, and she was already moving to the next threat. Caspian was less gentle. His beast form crashed through attackers like they were paper, his massive jaws closing on throats, his claws raking through flesh. But he was still present enough to distinguish between lethal and non-lethal force, something he'd never managed before. The bond was working. The ritual was holding. They were winning. The first wave fell back, regrouping, shocked. Through the cave entrance, Arya heard shouting, council members barking orders, trying to understand what they were facing. "It's not possible," someone yelled. "Luna wolves are extinct." "So were Silverfang bloodlines," another voice shot back. "Apparently we were wrong about a lot of things." Then Thorn's voice, cold and calculating, "It doesn't matter what she is. We outnumber them 20-1. Send everyone. Kill the Alpha King, cage the Luna, and bring me the silver-eyed pup." The second wave was larger. Faster. Better prepared. And this time, they weren't trying to capture. They were trying to kill. Arya and Caspian fought back-to-back now, their movements synchronized through the bond. She felt his exhaustion as her own, felt his pain when claws raked across his shoulder, felt his desperate determination to protect her even in beast form. And he felt her strength. Her speed. Her absolutely refusal to go down without taking half the council with her. A wolf came at her from the side, too fast, too close. She twisted away, but not far enough. Teeth grazed her flank, drawing blood, and she yelped despite herself. Caspian's roar shook the cave. His beast form moved with terrifying speed, catching the attacking wolf mid-lunge and slamming it into the stone wall hard enough to crack rock. The wolf didn't get up. Together, Arya thought at him through the bond. "We fight together." His response was wordless but absolute, agreement, devotion, desperate love that transcended language. They fought for what felt like hours but was probably minutes. Wolves fell around them, some dead, most just wounded, all of them learning that a Luna-bonded Alpha King was nothing like what they'd expected. But there were too many. Even working together, even with the bond strengthening them both, eventually the numbers would tell. Arya felt her strength flagging, felt exhaustion dragging at her limbs. Beside her, Caspian's beast form was slowing, his movements less fluid, his breathing labored. They were losing. And then, from the back of the siege force, a new scent reached them. Strong. Familiar. Carrying the distinctive marker of beta rank and absolute authority. Thorn. He stepped into the cave entrance flanked by 4 massive warriors, his personal guard, each one hand-picked for strength and absolute loyalty. Behind him, council enforcement wolves blocked every exit, surrounding the cave completely. Thorn had shifted to human form, wearing expensive clothes unmarred by the battle, his expression coldly satisfied. Well, well. The broken king and his Luna. How touching. His smile was sharp as knives. But ultimately pointless. Arya shifted back to human form, exhaustion making her movements clumsy. Beside her, Caspian's beast form growled low and continuous, but he didn't attack. Through the bond, she felt his calculation, weighing odds, measuring distances, trying to find a way to protect her against impossible numbers. It's over, Thorn continued, moving deeper into the cave with casual confidence. You fought well, I'll give you that. Better than I expected. But you're outnumbered, exhausted, and, most importantly, you've left something very valuable unprotected. Arya's blood ran cold. What are you talking about? Thorn's smile widened. Did you really think I didn't notice the hidden tunnel? Did you think I didn't position scouts to watch every possible exit? He gestured, and 2 more wolves entered the cave, dragging a struggling old woman between them. Ilara. Found her trying to sneak 2 very interesting pups down to the river, Thorn said conversationally. Cute kids. The little girl was crying. The boy tried to fight. He laughed. I admire his spirit. Such a waste that he'll be spending the next 15 years being trained to obey me. No, Arya whispered. Oh yes. Thorn's expression turned cruel. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to come with me quietly. No fighting, no struggling, no last desperate heroics. And in exchange, I'll let the Alpha King live. Let him rot here in his cave, cursed and alone, while you warm my bed and raise my puppet king. His hand extended. Come, Omega. It's time to accept your place. Everything in Arya screamed to refuse. To fight. To make them drag her away bleeding and screaming rather than go willingly into captivity. But Mason and Lily were out there somewhere. Held by Thorn's wolves. Terrified and alone. She met Caspian's eyes, still beast form, still massive and dangerous, but very clearly understanding every word. Through the bond, she felt his rage, his desperation, his absolute refusal to let her sacrifice herself. I have to, she thought at him. For the children. No. We fight. We die together if we must. They're babies, Caspian. I can't. His beast form moved faster than thought. Not toward Thorn. Toward her. Massive jaws closed around her neck, not hard, not breaking skin, but firm. Dominant. The wolf equivalent of a mate claiming his partner, marking her as his in a way no other wolf could dispute. The message was absolutely clear, you're not going anywhere. Thorn's expression darkened. How touching. But ultimately futile. You can't fight all of us. And even if you somehow managed, I'd just kill the pups out of spite. He gestured to his guards. Take them both. Kill the king if he resists. The warriors moved forward. And then, from the depths of the cave, a child's voice rang out clear and defiant. Let my mama go. Everyone froze. Mason stood in the entrance to the inner chamber, his small body radiating power that shouldn't exist in a 3-year-old. His silver eyes blazed with inner light, and around him, the air itself seemed to shimmer and bend. Behind him, Lily clutched Alara's hand, and the old woman smiled with satisfaction. Impossible, Thorn breathed. The tunnel. Led exactly where I told them to go, Alara said calmly. In a circle. Back here. Where they belong. She looked at Mason, at the power building around him. Show them, little wolf. Show them what Silverfang blood truly means. Mason took a step forward, and every wolf in the cave, every warrior, every enforcer, every beta and alpha in Thorn's siege force, felt it. Ancient dominance. Primal authority. The kind of power that existed before packs, before territories, before wolves learned to build societies. The power of the first alphas. The wolves who had shaped their entire species. One by one, unable to help themselves, the warriors dropped to their knees. Even Thorn, arrogant and cruel and absolutely confident in his superiority, felt his legs buckle. His wolf whined, pressing low, utterly overwhelmed. No, he gasped. It's not, he's just a pup. He's Silverfang born, Alara said quietly. And you threatened his mother. Her smile was sharp. That was your first mistake. Threatening Aluna was your second. But trying to manipulate an alpha king? She laughed. That was your last. Caspian's beast form released Arya. Turned toward Thorn. Moved forward with terrible purpose. And Thorn, beta councilman of Silvermoon, architect of countless manipulations, finally understood that he'd miscalculated. Badly. The beast form loomed over him, jaws wide, eyes blazing with fury that was part curse, part mate bond protection, and entirely lethal. Arya's voice cut through the tension, "Don't kill him." Caspian's beast form paused. Through the bond, she felt his confusion, his rage, his desperate need to eliminate the threat to his mate and pups. "Don't kill him," she repeated, moving to stand beside the massive wolf. "Because we're better than that. Because we're going to change the system, not just remove one corrupt wolf from it." She looked at Thorn, at his terrified expression, his absolute certainty that he was about to die. "Because I want him to live knowing he lost. Knowing that the Omega he tried to claim became Aluna. Knowing that the broken king he tried to destroy found his mate. Knowing that the pup he wanted to control already has more power than Thorn will ever possess." She crouched down, meeting Thorn's eyes. "You lose. We win. And you get to watch everything you tried to build crumble around you." Then she stood, taking Mason's small hand in hers, and looked at the assembled wolves, enforcers, warriors, council members, all of them still kneeling beneath Mason's unconscious dominance display. "Tell the council," she said clearly. "Tell them the Luna has returned. Tell them the Alpha King lives. Tell them that pack law is about to change, whether they like it or not." She turned to Caspian's beast form, this massive creature of nightmare and curse, and smiled. "Let's go home," she said softly. The wolf's response was a low, rumbling sound that might have been agreement. And as moonlight flooded the cave, as Mason's power faded and the warriors stumbled to their feet in shock, as Thorn lay broken and defeated on the stone floor, Arya finally understood what Alara had meant. She wasn't just changing her own life. She was changing the world. Chapter 7. The moment of triumph lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then silver chains exploded from the shadows, wrapping around Arya's throat before she could even scream. She hit the ground hard, the metal burning through her skin like acid, and through the bond she felt Caspian's beast form roar in rage and agony. "Did you really think it would be that easy?" Thorn's voice was different now, no longer the smooth politician, but something raw and desperate and utterly mad. He rose from where he'd been kneeling, his eyes blazing with hatred. "Did you think I'd come here without a backup plan?" More chains shot out, catching Mason and Lily before they could run. The children screamed, the silver burning them, and Arya felt her heart shatter as she watched them thrash helplessly. Caspian's beast form lunged, but warriors grabbed the chains attached to Arya's throat and pulled. The silver dug deeper, cutting off her air, and Caspian froze mid-attack, unable to help her without risking her life, unable to stand down while she was in pain. Perfectly trapped. That's better. Thorn moved forward, his expression twisted with sick satisfaction. You see, Alpha King, I've spent 3 years planning this. 3 years since you vanished like a coward, leaving a power vacuum that should have been mine to fill. 3 years of careful manipulation, strategic alliances, and, most importantly, waiting for the right moment to strike. Through the haze of pain and oxygen deprivation, Arya heard footsteps. Multiple sets. Moving into the cave with the confidence of wolves who knew they'd already won. Bring them in, Thorn commanded. The first figure that emerged from the shadows made Arya's blood run cold. She was beautiful in the way poisonous things were beautiful, all perfect features and cold calculation. Her hair was midnight black, her eyes the pale blue of winter ice, and she wore the traditional robes of a promised mate, marked with symbols that should have bonded her to an Alpha King. Elena. Caspian's beast form went absolutely still. Through the bond, Arya felt his recognition, his horror, his rage so profound it bordered on insanity. The woman who'd tried to kill him. Who'd cursed him. Who'd destroyed everything he'd built. The woman who was supposed to be dead. Hello, Caspian. Elena's voice was honey over razor blades. Miss me? Behind her came another figure, an old woman, but nothing like Alara's grandmother kindness. This woman radiated wrongness, her presence making the air itself feel sick. Dark magic clung to her like a shroud, and her eyes were completely black, no whites visible at all. The witch. The one who'd created the curse. And behind them both, moving into the cave with the weight of absolute authority, came Marcus Stoneheart. The head councilman looked between Arya and Caspian, his expression unreadable. Then he nodded once to Thorn. You were right, Stoneheart said heavily. The Alpha King lives. And he's found his mate. His eyes found Caspian's massive beast form. I'm sorry, old friend. But pack law is clear. You were declared dead. Your throne is forfeit. And harboring a claimed Omega is still a crime. Old friend? Arya gasped out through the chains strangling her. We served together, once. Stoneheart's voice was sad. Before the curse. Before everything fell apart. I thought, I hoped, you died with some dignity, Caspian. That the beast had finally won and ended your suffering. But instead you've been here, hiding, and now you've dragged innocent wolves into your mess. Through the bond, Arya felt Caspian's beast form trying to communicate, trying to speak, but the transformation was too complete. He could only growl, only snarl, his human consciousness trapped behind animal instincts. Elena laughed, the sound sharp and cruel. How poetic. The great Alpha King, reduced to an animal that can't even speak in its own defense. She moved closer to Caspian, staying just out of range of his teeth. Do you remember our mating ceremony, beloved? How you stood there so proud, so certain you were building a dynasty. How you never suspected that I'd spent years studying with Morgana here, learning exactly how to steal your power. The witch, Morgana, smiled, revealing teeth filed to points. The curse was my finest work. Designed to break you slowly, to strip away your humanity piece by piece until nothing remained but beast. And when the beast finally consumed you completely, all your Alpha King power would be released, ready to be claimed by someone worthy. Someone like me, Thorn added, his confidence returning. Someone who understands how to truly use power. Not wasting it on unity and peace and other weak ideals, but building an empire. One that spans all territories, all packs, with absolute authority. But then you had to go and survive. Elena's expression twisted with rage. You were supposed to die, Caspian. The curse should have killed you within months. Instead, you adapted, exiled yourself, turned survival into a pathetic art form. She gestured at Arya. And now you've found this, Omega, and formed a mate bond that's actually stabilizing the curse. Do you have any idea how much that infuriates me? Through the silver chains, despite the pain, Arya managed to speak. You're jealous. Elena's head snapped toward her. What? You're jealous. Aria's voice was stronger now, her Luna wolf pushing through the pain. Because he never loved you. Because even cursed and broken and living in a cave, he found something real with me. Something you could never have. Silence. Elena's hand shot out, and magical force slammed into Aria like a physical blow. Pain exploded through her body, and through the bond, she felt Caspian's beast form roar in shared agony. Careful, Morgana cautioned. We need her blood pure. Tainted with too much pain, and the ritual won't work. What ritual? Marcus Stoneheart's voice was sharp now, confused. Thorn, you said we were here to apprehend a rogue alpha and recover stolen property. You said nothing about finishing what we started 3 years ago? Elena interrupted. About finally killing the Alpha King and claiming his power? About using the Luna's blood to complete the greatest working of dark magic this territory has ever seen? She smiled at Stoneheart's shocked expression. Oh, did Thorn not mention that part? How inconvenient. Thorn's face flushed. You were never supposed to know the details, Marcus. Just provide the official council authority to make this legal. Legal? Stoneheart's voice was dangerous now. You're talking about blood magic. About murdering an Alpha King. About using an innocent Omega as a sacrifice. And you forged my signature on documents authorizing this? I did what was necessary. You betrayed the council. Stoneheart moved toward Thorn, his alpha dominance rising. You used my name, my authority, to justify this madness. And you made me complicit in crimes that... Elena waved her hand almost casually, and Stoneheart flew backward, slamming into the cave wall hard enough to crack stone. He slumped, unconscious, blood trickling from his temple. Boring, Elena declared. Morgana, the ritual. Now. Before more complications arise. The witch moved forward, pulling out a curved silver blade that gleamed with unnatural light. The Luna's blood will break the partial cure they managed. Her death will release the Alpha King's power fully. And Thorn will claim it, becoming the first Alpha King in 3 years. Morgana smiled. Poetic, really. Using love to undo love. No. The scream came from Mason, his small body straining against the silver chains. His eyes blazed with that ancient silver fawn power, but he was too young, too inexperienced to wield it consciously. Don't hurt my mama. The silver-eyed pup. Elena studied Mason with calculating interest. Silver fawn blood, awakened early. Yes, I can use that too. Once the mother is dead, we'll drain the pup as well. Combined power should make Thorn unstoppable. Aria's wolf raged against the chains, desperate, terrified not for herself but for her children. Through the bond, she felt Caspian's beast form struggling, trying to reach them, but the warriors held the chains attached to her throat firm. One wrong move, and they'd strangle her. Morgana knelt beside Aria, the cursed blade gleaming. This will hurt, the witch said conversationally. The blade is designed to extract every drop of Luna blood while keeping you alive as long as possible. Maximum suffering, maximum power transfer. Do try to scream, it enhances the magic. The blade descended. And Aria, looking death in the face, did the only thing she could think of. She opened the bond completely. Not just the surface connection they'd been maintaining. Not just the awareness of each other's emotions and location. She ripped down every mental barrier, every protective wall, and let Caspian experience everything, the pain, the fear, the absolute terror of watching her children about to be murdered. And most importantly, the love. The overwhelming, consuming, absolutely certain love she felt for him. For the broken king who'd saved them. For the cursed Alpha who'd treated her children with more kindness than their own pack. For the man trapped in beast form who was fighting so desperately to protect them. Through the bond, she felt him feel it. Felt his beast form freeze as human consciousness surged forward, driven by emotion too powerful to be suppressed. felt the moment the man started fighting back against the curse. The blade touched her skin. And Caspian broke. The sound he made wasn't human. Wasn't wolf. It was something primal and terrible and absolutely enraged. His beast form convulsed, muscles rippling, bones cracking and reforming in ways that should have been impossible. The warriors holding Arya's chains stumbled back, their instincts screaming at them to run. The chains went slack for just a moment. It was enough. Arya's Luna wolf surged forward with desperate strength. Silver burned, but she didn't care. She twisted, pulling the chains taut, using her own body weight to yank them from the warrior's hands. Then she was rolling, moving, putting herself between Morgana's blade and her children. "Mama!" Lily screamed. Behind them, Caspian's transformation reached a crescendo. What emerged wasn't quite human. Wasn't quite beast. It was something in between, a nightmare hybrid of man and wolf, standing on two legs but covered in midnight fur, his face elongated into a muzzle but his silver eyes burning with human intelligence and absolute fury. "Impossible," Elena breathed. "The curse doesn't allow." The hybrid moved. Faster than thought. Faster than magic. One clawed hand caught Morgana by the throat, lifting her off the ground with contemptuous ease. "Don't touch my mate." The words came out distorted, barely comprehensible, but understandable. Caspian's human consciousness was present, fighting through the curse, speaking despite the beast form that should have made it impossible. Morgana gasped, clawing at his hand, her magic flaring desperately. Dark power crashed against Caspian, trying to force him back, trying to reassert the curse's control. But the mate bond was stronger. Through their connection, Arya felt his pain, his struggle, and she poured her own strength through the bond, Luna power meeting alpha dominance, balancing it, anchoring it, giving him the stability he needed to maintain control. Together, they were stronger than any curse. Caspian's clawed hand tightened. Morgana's magic sputtered, died, extinguished by sheer physical force. The witch's eyes went wide with shock and terror. "For Thomas," Caspian growled. "For 3 years in hell. For threatening my family." His hand closed completely. Morgana's neck snapped with a sound like breaking branches. The witch's body hit the ground, lifeless, her black eyes staring at nothing. Dark magic bled from her corpse, dissipating into smoke and shadow. Elena screamed, rage and disbelief combined. "You killed her. You killed Morgana. Do you have any idea what you've done?" "Freed myself." Caspian's hybrid form turned toward her, and even Arya, his mate, his Luna, felt a shiver of primal fear at the sight. He was terrifying. Powerful. Absolutely lethal. The witch is dead. The curse is breaking. And you, Elena, are next. No. Thorn moved between them, his body already shifting to wolf form. "I didn't come this far to fail now. Beta warriors, attack. Kill the king, cage the Luna, and secure those pups." The remaining warriors hesitated, torn between orders and the primal instinct to flee from something that had just killed a dark witch with its bare hands. That hesitation saved their lives. Because from the shadows of the inner chamber, a small voice rang out, not Mason this time, but Lily. Sweet, gentle Lily who'd barely spoken above a whisper since entering the cave. "Stop hurting my family." Power exploded outward. Not Silver Fang dominance. Not Alpha command. Something else entirely, pure, radiant Luna power, untrained and unconscious but absolutely overwhelming. It crashed over the cave like a tidal wave, and every wolf present felt it. Healing. Protection. Absolute rejection of violence. The warriors stumbled, their wolves whining, unable to attack in the face of that innocent, powerful plea. Even Thorn, mid-shift, found himself frozen, his wolf refusing to move, refusing to fight against a Luna pup's desperate cry. "She's awakened," Arya whispered, staring at her daughter in shock. "Lily's Lunaborn too. Both my children." Carry the blood of legends. Elara's voice came from the cave entrance, the old shaman pulling herself to her feet despite the blow that had knocked her down. Silverfang and Luna, combined in two small bodies. The moon herself has blessed this family. She looked at Elena, at Thorn, at the assembled warriors. And you tried to destroy them. No, Elena said, backing away. No, this isn't. The ritual should have. Morgana was supposed to. Morgana is dead. Caspian's hybrid form stalked toward her, each step deliberate. Your curse is breaking. Your plan has failed. And now you're going to answer for 3 years of suffering. Wait. Elena's hands came up, not in defense but in desperate supplication. Please, Caspian. I made mistakes. I was young, foolish, ambitious. But we could try again. Forget all this, start fresh, build what we should have had. You tried to kill me. His voice was flat, inhuman. You cursed me to a living hell. You threatened my mate and her children. And you thought I'd, what? Forgive you? I loved you. The words came out raw, desperate. I did, in my own way. I loved your power, your strength, your potential. We could have been great together. You loved nothing but yourself. Caspian's clawed hand lifted, ready to strike. And I won't make the mistake of mercy twice. Stop. The command came from Arya. She'd managed to remove the silver chains, her neck burned and bleeding but her voice strong. She stood between Caspian and Elena, her Luna power radiating. Don't kill her, Arya said quietly. Arya. Not for her sake. For yours. She touched his face, or what was left of it, distorted and monstrous but still somehow Caspian beneath the fur and fangs. You're not a killer. Not by choice. Everything you've done, even as the beast, was because the curse forced you. Don't let her turn you into what she tried to make you. She deserves to die. Probably. Arya's smile was sad. But you deserve to be free. And killing her, killing anyone who isn't directly threatening us, that's just another chain. Another curse. Another way for her to control you even from the grave. For a long moment, Caspian's hybrid form was absolutely still. Then, slowly, his clawed hand lowered. Bind her, he growled at the warriors, who scrambled to obey. Silver chains. She moves, she speaks, she breathes wrong, you have permission to kill her. Elena sagged with relief, even as warriors wrapped her in the same chains she'd planned to use on Arya. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you, I. Don't thank me, Caspian cut her off. Thank my mate. She's better than either of us ever were. He turned away from Elena, dismissing her completely, and moved toward Thorn. The Beta councilman had managed to complete his shift, but he wasn't attacking. His gray wolf form stood frozen, Lily's Luna power still holding him in place. Through shifted eyes, he stared at Caspian's hybrid form with absolute terror. You wanted to be Alpha King, Caspian said softly, dangerously. You wanted to rule through fear and force. You wanted to use a child as your puppet. His hybrid form crouched, bringing his face level with Thorn's wolf. Let me show you what real Alpha Kings do to wolves who threaten pups. He moved. Not to kill, Arya's words had reached him. But to hurt. To teach. To make absolutely certain that Thorn understood the magnitude of his mistake. Claws raked across Thorn's side. Not deep enough to be lethal, but deep enough to scar. To mark. To ensure that every wolf who saw him would know he'd challenged an Alpha King and lost. Thorn's wolf howled in pain and submission, dropping to the ground, throat bared in complete surrender. Around him, the remaining warriors, those who'd come with Thorn, who'd helped chain children, who'd stood by while dark magic was prepared, all dropped as well. Absolute dominance. Alpha King authority, unchallenged and undeniable. And in the sudden silence that followed, Marcus Stoneheart pulled himself to his feet, blood still trickling from his temple but his eyes clear and furious. Thorn, he said, his voice carrying the weight of council judgment. You forged my signature. You conspired with dark witches. You attempted to murder an Alpha King and sacrifice a Luna. He moved forward, each step deliberate. As head councilman, I hereby strip you of your beta rank, your council position, and your pack membership. You are declared rogue, outcast, and if I ever see your face again, I will kill you myself. Thorn's wolf whimpered, broken. Stoneheart turned to Caspian, who was slowly shifting back, not to full beast, not to full human, but to something close to human form. The transformation was rough, painful, but he managed it, standing on two legs with only patches of fur remaining and his eyes still burning silver. Caspian Blackthorn, Stoneheart said formally. 3 years ago, you were declared dead. Your throne was left empty. But I see now that you lived, cursed, exiled, but alive. He dropped to one knee. I ask your forgiveness for believing the lies. For not searching harder. For letting corrupt wolves use my authority for evil. Marcus. Caspian's voice was rough but recognizably human. Stand up. You were deceived, not complicit. The fault lies with those who manipulated you, not with you for being manipulated. Stoneheart stood, relief crossing his face. Then, you'll return? Take back the throne? The pack's need. No. The word fell like a stone. Arya looked at Caspian in surprise, and through their bond, felt his certainty. I can't rule, Caspian continued. Not like this. Not with the curse still present, even weakened. Not when every full moon I risk becoming the beast again. He looked at Arya, at the children, at the family he'd somehow found. But I can advise. I can help. I can work with the council to reform pack law, to protect Omegas and Pups, to make sure what happened to Arya never happens again. That's not, Stoneheart stopped, seeing something in Caspian's expression. You're serious. I'm tired, old friend. Tired of fighting, of ruling, of carrying the weight of entire territories on my shoulders. Caspian moved to Arya's side, his arms sliding around her waist. I want something smaller. Something real. A life with my mate and her children. A chance to be Caspian instead of the Alpha King. Stoneheart looked between them, then at the twins, Mason with his blazing silver eyes, Lily still radiating unconscious Luna power, and slowly nodded. I understand. But the territory still needs leadership. Needs someone strong enough to unite the packs, wise enough to reform unjust laws, connected enough to the old bloodlines to command respect. His eyes found Mason. In 15 years, Stoneheart said carefully, when the silver-eyed pup comes of age, will you help me train him? Help him become the Alpha King the territory needs? Arya's arms tightened protectively around her children. But before she could refuse, Mason spoke up, his young voice strong. I'll do it. When I'm big. I'll be Alpha King like Caspian, and I'll make sure no bad wolves hurt my mama ever again. Caspian laughed, a real laugh, full of genuine warmth. He ruffled Mason's hair gently. We'll see, pup. We'll see. You've got a lot of growing to do first. But you'll teach me? I'll teach you. Caspian's expression softened. I'll teach you everything, how to fight, how to lead, how to be strong and kind at the same time. And most importantly, I'll teach you that being Alpha King isn't about power. It's about protection. About using strength to defend those who can't defend themselves. Like you protected us? Like I'll always protect you. Caspian knelt, bringing himself to Mason's level. You and your sister and your mother, you're my family now. My pack. And I don't abandon my pack. Lily, her Luna power finally fading as exhaustion set in, stumbled forward and wrapped her small arms around Caspian's neck. You're not scary anymore, she whispered. You're just Caspian. Through the bond, Arya felt his heart break and mend simultaneously. Felt the 3 years of isolation and pain finally begin to fade. Felt the broken king become something new, not an Alpha King, not a cursed beast, but simply a man trying to protect the family he'd found. Arya joined them, wrapping her arms around all three, and for the first time in years, maybe the first time in her entire life, felt completely, absolutely safe. Behind them, warriors hauled Elena and Thorn away in silver chains. Council enforcers organized the cleanup, removing bodies, documenting crimes, preparing the official reports that would explain how everything had changed in one brutal night. And Stoneheart stood watching, his expression thoughtful, already planning the reforms that would reshape pack law. But in the center of the cave, surrounded by her children and her mate, Arya closed her eyes and simply breathed. They'd survived. Against impossible odds, against dark magic and corrupt councils and curses that should have killed them all, they'd survived. And more than that, they'd won. Not through violence alone. Not through dominance or force. But through love. Through sacrifice. Through a Luna and an Alpha finding each other in the darkness and refusing to let go. The moon had indeed blessed this family. And the packs would never be the same. Chapter 8. The days after the battle blurred together in a haze of healing and change. Arya woke in a proper bed for the first time in over a week, not furs on a cave floor, but an actual bed with soft sheets and pillows that didn't smell like stone and earth. The room was unfamiliar, part of the Alpha's lodge that Marcus Stoneheart had insisted they use while the council convened to sort through the aftermath of Thorn's betrayal. Beside her, Caspian slept deeply, his breathing even, his face peaceful in a way she'd never seen while he was awake. The curse had weakened significantly after Morgana's death, but it hadn't disappeared entirely. Every night, she felt it through the bond, a darkness at the edges of his consciousness, waiting for the next full moon, testing the strength of their connection. They were winning. But the war wasn't over yet. A small sound drew her attention to the door, where Mason and Lily stood in their nightclothes, looking uncertain. "Mama?" Lily's voice was barely a whisper. "We had bad dreams." Arya's heart clenched. Of course they did. They'd witnessed things no children should see, dark magic, violence, their mother nearly killed. She opened the blankets on her side of the bed. "Come here, babies." They scrambled up, pressing close, and Arya wrapped her arms around them. On the other side, Caspian stirred, his silver eyes opening to find 3 pairs of eyes watching him. "Room for one more?" he asked softly. Mason nodded seriously. "Your family now. Family sleeps together when there are bad dreams." Something in Caspian's expression cracked. He reached out slowly, giving the children time to pull away if they wanted, and drew them all close. His large frame curled around Arya and the twins protectively, creating a cocoon of safety. "No bad dreams can reach you here," he murmured. "I promise." "Because you're the Alpha King?" Mason asked. "Because I'm your father now." The word came out rough, uncertain. If that's all right with you." Mason considered this with the seriousness only a 4-year-old could muster. "Our real daddy died. Mama said he's watching from the moon now." "He is," Caspian confirmed gently. "Will you die too?" The question hung in the air, painful and honest. Arya started to intervene, to soften it, but Caspian shook his head slightly. "Someday," he said truthfully. "All wolves do, eventually. But not soon. Not for a very long time, if I can help it. And until then, I'm going to protect you and your mama with everything I have." "Promise?" "I promise." "Okay." Mason snuggled closer. "Then you can be our daddy. But we'll still remember our first daddy too." "Good." Caspian's voice was thick with emotion. "You should always remember him. He was brave and strong and he loved you very much. I could never replace him, I wouldn't want to. But I can stand beside his memory and help your mama keep you safe." Lily, who'd been quiet through this exchange, looked up at Caspian with her warm brown eyes. "Do you love mama?" "Yes," Caspian answered without hesitation. "Do you love us?" "Yes." "Then you're our daddy." Lily said it with such simple certainty, as if the matter was completely settled. Daddies are the people who love you and protect you and don't leave even when things are scary. Through the bond, Arya felt Caspian's emotions, overwhelming gratitude, fierce protectiveness, and love so profound it made her chest ache. This broken king who'd lived in isolation for 3 years, who'd believed himself a monster, was being accepted by 2 small children as if it were the easiest thing in the world. Get some sleep, Arya said softly, kissing both children's foreheads. All of us. Tomorrow is going to be a long day. Tomorrow, the council would convene formally. Tomorrow, decisions would be made about the future, about Caspian's role, about pack law, about what happened next. But tonight, they were just a family, holding each other through the darkness. Arya didn't remember falling asleep, but suddenly she was somewhere else. Not the lodge. Not the cave. Somewhere in between, a space that felt like moonlight made solid, where the air shimmered with possibility and the ground beneath her feet was soft as clouds. And standing in front of her, whole and healthy and smiling the way he used to, was Marcus. "Hello, my love," her late mate said gently. Arya's breath caught. "You're not real. You're just a dream. A guilt-fueled hallucination because I've fallen in love with another wolf?" Marcus's smile was sad but genuine. "I know. I've been watching. I'm sorry." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry. I thought I'd never feel this way again. Thought it would betray you, betray what we had." "Arya." He stepped forward, cupping her face with hands that felt solid and warm despite being made of moonlight and memory. "You're not betraying me. You're living. That's what I wanted. What I've always wanted. But you died for us. For me and the children. How can I just move on? Because that's what living means." His thumbs brushed away her tears. "Do you remember what I said that last night? Before the rogues came?" She did. She'd replayed it 1,000 times in the years since. "You said you loved me. That you'd always love me, no matter what. And I meant it. I love you, Arya. I will always love you. But love isn't a cage, it's not something that ends when I do." His expression was earnest, desperate for her to understand. "The best thing I ever did was love you. The best thing you can do is let yourself be loved again. What if I'm choosing wrong? What if you're not?" Marcus glanced over her shoulder, and Arya turned to see Caspian standing in the distance, watching them with those silver eyes. "He's good for you. Strong enough to protect you, broken enough to understand your pain, humble enough to accept love from 2 small children who call him daddy." He squeezed her hands. "He's what you need now. What our children need." "Our children," Arya repeated, the words catching in her throat. "They'll always be mine, too. But they need a father who's alive, who can teach Mason to be strong and Lily to be gentle, who can stand beside you instead of watching from the moon." Marcus's smile turned wistful. "I can't give them that anymore. But he can. I loved you so much. I know. And I loved you. Love you still." He pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "One last time, one final goodbye. But you get to have more than one great love in your lifetime, Arya. The moon blessed us with each other for the years we had. And now she's blessing you with him. Don't refuse her gift out of guilt. I don't know how to let you go. You don't have to let me go." He stepped back, his form starting to fade, becoming more moonlight than solid. "I'll always be here, watching over you and our pups. But I'm giving you permission, no, I'm asking you, to let yourself be happy. To accept the mate bond with Caspian fully. To live the life you deserve. Marcus. Be happy, my love. That's all I ever wanted for you." His voice was distant now, echoing. "Be happy, and tell our children their first father loves them. Tell them I'm proud of them. Tell them." He was gone, fading into moonlight and dreams, leaving Arya standing alone in the space between sleep and waking. Not alone. Caspian stood where he'd been watching, his expression uncertain. Was that real? Or just your mind trying to resolve guilt? Does it matter? Arya moved toward him, her heart lighter than it had been in years. Real or not, I needed to hear it. Needed permission to stop punishing myself for surviving. And did you? Get permission? I did. She reached him, placing her hands on his chest, feeling his heart beat strong and steady beneath her palms. Marcus loved me. Loves me still, wherever he is. But he wants me to be happy. Wants the children to have a father who's present. Wants me to accept what we have, this bond, this connection, without guilt. Caspian's hands covered hers. What do you want? I want you. The words came out firm, certain, no hesitation. I want this bond. I want our family. I want to wake up every morning knowing you're there, that the children are safe, that we're building something real together. She lifted on her toes, bringing her face closer to his. I want to be your mate, Caspian Blackthorn. Fully. Completely. With no reservations. His eyes blazed silver. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Then choose me. His voice was rough, intense. Here, in this dream space where intention matters more than reality. Choose me, and when we wake, we'll make it official. Arya didn't hesitate. She pressed her lips to his, pouring everything into the kiss, acceptance, love, determination, hope. And through the bond, she felt the curse crack. Not break entirely. But crack, like ice in spring, letting light through for the first time in 3 years. When they woke, tangled together with 2 sleeping children between them, the bond thrummed with new strength. And Arya knew, with absolute certainty, what she had to do. The council convened at noon in the great hall of Silvermoon's pack house, a massive room that could hold hundreds of wolves. Today, it held representatives from every pack in the territory, all gathered to witness history. Arya stood in the antechamber, wearing a dress that Alara had somehow produced, traditional Luna ceremonial robes, marked with silver threads that caught the light. Beside her, Mason and Lily wore smaller versions, designated as royal heirs in training. You don't have to do this, Marcus Stoneheart said quietly. He'd been hovering near them all morning, still guilty about his unwitting role in Thorne's schemes. We can delay the ceremony, give you more time to adjust. No. Arya's voice was firm. We do this now. Today. Before anyone gets ideas about challenging Caspian's claim or questioning the bond. She met Stoneheart's eyes. You said the packs need strong leadership. Unity. Reform. They're not going to get that if we hide in the shadows and pretend nothing has changed. She's right, Alara added, appearing from the shadows like she did, with herbs and wisdom in equal measure. The territory is fractured. Thorne's betrayal exposed corruption that runs deep. They need to see strength. Need to believe that the Alpha King has returned and brought his Luna with him. But the curse is weakening. Arya touched the place over her heart where she felt the bond most strongly. Every day, it gets easier for him to control. The mate bond is working exactly how the ritual said it would, balancing his power, anchoring his humanity. We're not waiting for perfection. We're claiming what's ours. A knock at the door, and one of Stoneheart's aides poked her head in. They're ready for you. Arya took a deep breath, squeezed both children's hands, and stepped forward. The great hall fell silent as she entered. Hundreds of wolves packed the space, alphas and betas, warriors and healers, representatives from packs she'd never even heard of. All of them staring at her with expressions ranging from curious to hostile to awed. At the front of the hall, on a raised platform, Caspian stood waiting. He wore traditional Alpha King ceremonial robes, dark as midnight and marked with silver that matched the tattoos on his neck. His hair was still too long, his scars still visible, but he stood with the bearing of someone born to rule. The curse lingered at the edges, she could see it in the way his eyes sometimes flashed too bright, in the tension of his shoulders, but it didn't control him anymore. He was Caspian Blackthorn. Cursed, yes. Broken, perhaps. But unmistakably, undeniably, the Alpha King. Arya walked toward him, her children at her sides, and the crowd parted like water. She felt their stares, heard the whispers, about the Omega who'd fled her claiming, about the Luna who'd awakened, about the children who carried legendary bloodlines. Let them whisper. Let them wonder. She knew who she was now. When she reached the platform, Caspian extended his hand. Arya took it without hesitation, and the bond flared between them, visible to everyone present as a silver glow that seemed to emanate from their joined hands. Marcus Stoneheart stepped forward, his voice carrying through the hall. 3 years ago, we lost our Alpha King to a curse we didn't understand. Today, he returns, not as the man who left, but as something stronger. Something forged in isolation and pain and the kind of determination that refused to break even when breaking would have been easier. He turned to Arya. And with him comes a Luna. Not chosen by council decree, not arranged for political advantage, but recognized by the moon herself. A mate bond formed in darkness, tested by blood magic, and proven through sacrifice. Stoneheart's gaze swept the crowd. Some of you question this. Question her lineage, her worthiness, her sudden rise from Omega to Luna Queen. But I watched her stand between her children and certain death. Watched her offer her own life to break a curse that had destroyed our king. Watched her awaken Luna power that hasn't been seen in this territory for 3 generations. His voice hardened. So question her if you must. But do it knowing that she's already proven herself 100 times over. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, but no one spoke against her directly. Caspian's hand tightened on hers, and through the bond, she felt his pride, his love, his absolute certainty that she belonged exactly where she was. Arya, he said, his voice rough but clear. 3 years ago, I stood in a ceremony like this. Believed I was forming a mate bond with someone chosen by others, arranged for power, designed for political gain. It was a lie. A manipulation. A curse disguised as a blessing. He pulled her closer, until they stood face to face, the bond blazing between them. But this is real. You didn't come to me because a council decreed it. You came to my cave bleeding and desperate and fierce, with children you'd do anything to protect. You stayed when I tried to push you away. You fought beside me when you could have fled. You offered your life to break a curse that wasn't your burden to carry. His voice softened. You chose me. Broken, cursed, living in a cave like an animal, you chose me anyway. I did, Arya confirmed, her voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. I choose you now. I choose you tomorrow. I choose you through every full moon and every curse and every challenge the moon throws at us. Because you're worth choosing, Caspian Blackthorn. You always were. She turned to the crowd, her Luna power rising instinctively, making her voice carry to every corner of the hall. I was told I was weak, she said clearly. Told I was just an Omega, that my only value was in bearing children for stronger wolves. That I should accept being claimed by a beta I didn't love, should give up my children, should know my place and stay in it. Her eyes blazed with silver light, Luna power fully awakened, impossible to deny. But I am Luna-born. My wolf was sleeping, suppressed by grief and council manipulation, but she woke when she found her true mate. And together, she squeezed Caspian's hand. Together, we're strong enough to change everything. To reform pack laws that treat Omegas like property. To protect children with rare bloodlines instead of exploiting them. To make this territory into something worth belonging to. She looked at Mason and Lily, standing proudly in their ceremonial robes, and felt her heart swell with fierce protectiveness. These are my children. Silverfang and Lunaborn, marked by the moon for greatness. They will be trained as royal heirs, not to serve corrupt councils, but to lead with strength and compassion. To understand that power is meant for protection, not domination. Finally, she turned back to Caspian, her voice dropping to something intimate despite the hundreds watching. And this is my mate. Cursed but fighting. Broken but healing. An alpha king who understands that true strength is standing back up after you've been destroyed. She lifted their joined hands, showing the silver glow of the bond to everyone present. I choose him. I accept this bond freely, consciously, with full knowledge of what it means. I claim Caspian Blackthorn as my mate before the moon and all witnesses. And I offer my Luna power to balance his alpha dominance, to anchor his humanity, to help him become not just the king he was, but the king this territory needs. Power exploded outward from their joined hands. Not violent. Not destructive. But absolute, a wave of combined alpha and Luna energy that washed over every wolf present. Arya felt it through the bond, felt Caspian's curse crack further, felt the darkness recede inch by inch as her Luna power poured into him. Healing. Anchoring. Balancing. The curse wouldn't disappear entirely. Some scars ran too deep for even mate bonds to erase completely. But it would fade. Would become manageable. Would transform from a sentence of isolation and madness into something they could face together. Caspian gasped, his body shuddering as the power worked through him. His eyes blazed silver, not with curse madness, but with pure alpha dominance tempered by Luna balance. When he straightened, he looked more human than he had since the transformation 3 years ago. More whole. The bond is complete, Alara announced from her place at the edge of the platform, her clouded eyes somehow seeing everything. The Alpha King has found his Luna. The curse is bound by love stronger than dark magic. And the moon herself has blessed this union. She raised her hands, and moonlight seemed to fill the hall despite it being midday, a blessing, a confirmation, proof that this was exactly what was meant to be. One by one, the wolves in the hall dropped to their knees. Not in submission born of fear, but in recognition of authority earned through sacrifice and strength. Even the alphas knelt. Even the cynics who doubted. Even the wolves who'd questioned whether an Omega could become Luna Queen. Because they'd all felt it. The power. The bond. The undeniable truth that Caspian and Arya were meant to rule together. Stoneheart was the last to kneel, and when he rose, he lifted his voice in the traditional proclamation. All hail Caspian Blackthorn, Alpha King of the Territories, returned from exile and restored by love. All hail Arya Blackthorn, Luna Queen, awakened by destiny and proven by sacrifice. All hail the royal heirs, Mason and Lily, blessed by ancient bloodlines and marked for greatness. Let all wolves recognize and honor this bond, this family, this new beginning for our packs. The hall erupted in howls, not aggressive, but celebratory. Recognition. Acceptance. Welcome. Arya looked at Caspian, at his silver eyes shining with tears he didn't try to hide, and felt something settle deep in her chest. Not just love. Not just the bond. Peace. Ready for this? She asked quietly. I've been ready since you stumbled into my cave bleeding and defiant and absolutely refusing to give up. His smile was crooked, genuine. You saved me, Arya. In every way a person can be saved. We saved each other, she corrected. Fair enough. He looked at the children, at Mason's proud expression and Lily's shy smile. What do you think, pups? Ready to be royal heirs? Will I still get to play with the other kids? Mason asked seriously. Of course. And you'll teach me to fight? Every day. Then I'm ready. Mason straightened, trying to look older than his 4 years. I'll be the best royal heir ever. And when I'm grown up, I'll be Alpha King just like you, and I'll make sure nobody ever hurts Omegas or little kids. That's my boy, Caspian said roughly. Lily tugged on Arya's dress. Mama? Are we safe now? Really safe? Arya knelt down, pulling her daughter close. We are, baby. We have a pack again. A real one. And your new daddy, the word still felt strange but right. Your new daddy is the strongest wolf in all the territories. Nobody's going to hurt us anymore. Promise? I promise. The ceremony that followed was a blur of tradition and celebration. Formal vows exchanged, though Arya and Caspian had already made their true promises in a cave with blood and moonlight and desperate hope. Gifts from pack representatives, some genuine, some obviously calculated for political favor. Speeches from council members, all carefully worded to align themselves with the new regime. But the moment Arya would remember forever came at sunset, when the formal events finally ended and they retreated to private quarters, just the four of them, their new family. Mason and Lily had finally crashed, exhausted from the day's excitement, curled together in a nest of blankets. Arya sat beside them, stroking their hair, while Caspian stood at the window watching the sun paint the sky in colors that promised tomorrow. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For not giving up on me. For seeing past the curse and the isolation and the 3 years of madness." He turned, his silver eyes soft in the dying light. "For giving me a reason to want to be human again. You were always human, Caspian. The curse just made it harder to see." Arya stood, crossing to him. "And you're welcome. But you saved us too. Saved me from a forced bond, saved the children from being taken, gave us all a home when we had nowhere else to go. Is this what you want?" His hand lifted, cupping her face. "Truly? Not just the bond, but all of it, being Luna Queen, raising royal heirs, standing beside me while we try to rebuild a broken system?" "Yes." No hesitation. No doubt. "This is exactly what I want. Even though it means danger? Even though there will be wolves who challenge us, who resent the changes we're making? Especially because of that." Arya's smile was fierce. "I'm done hiding, Caspian. Done letting other wolves decide what I'm worth or where I belong. We're going to change this territory, make it better, safer, kinder. For our children and for every Omega and pup who's been crushed by the old system. Together. Always together." She pulled him down, kissing him with all the certainty that had carried her through caves and curses and impossible choices. "That's what mates do. That's what we do." Through the window, the moon began to rise, not full yet, but waxing, growing stronger. Just like them. Just like the bond that anchored them both. Caspian pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her, his chin resting on top of her head. "I love you," he murmured. "My fierce, impossible, absolutely perfect Luna." "I love you too," Arya whispered back. "My broken, beautiful, endlessly brave Alpha King." Behind them, Mason stirred in his sleep, mumbling something about being strong like Daddy. Lily curled closer to her brother, safe and loved and finally at peace. And Arya understood, with crystalline clarity, what the moon had been teaching her all along. She'd come to the mountain to hide from destiny. But destiny had been waiting in the darkness all along, wearing the face of a cursed king who just needed someone to see past the monster to the man underneath. Sometimes the most broken kings made the best mates. And sometimes, the Omega everyone dismissed as weak was actually a Luna Queen in disguise. The story of how they found each other would be told for generations, a legend of curses and blood magic, of sacrifice and salvation, of two broken wolves who refused to stay broken. But right now, in this moment, with moonlight streaming through the window and her family safe around her, Arya wasn't thinking about legends. She was just thinking about tomorrow. And the day after. And all the days they'd have together, building something worth fighting for. Building a life. A family. A future. Together. Always together. Epilogue 1 year later. The full moon rose over Silvermoon territory, painting everything in silver light. In the royal lodge, Arya stood at the window with her hand pressed to her slightly rounded belly, feeling the life growing there, their first biological child together, conceived in love rather than obligation. Behind her, Mason practiced his fighting forms under Caspian's watchful eye, his movements already showing the natural grace of an alpha in training. Lily sat with Alara, learning the old Luna arts, healing, mediation, the subtle powers that balance strength with wisdom. And Caspian. Caspian stood tall and strong, fully in control as the transformation came. His wolf emerged smoothly, powerful but controlled, the curse finally broken completely. The mate bond had done what 3 years of exile couldn't, given him back himself. He nuzzled against Arya's leg in wolf form, and she scratched behind his ears, laughing. "Show off," she teased. His wolf huffed in amusement, then shifted back to human form with the ease of someone who'd mastered his own nature. "I'm allowed to show off. It took a year of hard work to get here." "And you're very impressive," Arya assured him, pulling him close. "The most impressive alpha king in all the territories." "The only alpha king in the territories," he corrected, but his smile was warm. "For now," Mason piped up. "When I'm big enough, I'll be alpha king too." "When you're big enough," Caspian agreed. "But first, you have about 15 years of training ahead of you." "And school," Arya added. "And learning to control that silver fang power without accidentally making every adult wolf in a 3-mile radius submit." Mason grinned, utterly unrepentant about the incident last month when he'd gotten mad and accidentally dominated half the council during a meeting. "He'll learn," Alara said serenely. "Both children will. They have the best teachers in the territory, after all." Through the window, Arya could see the pack gathering for the full moon run, a tradition Caspian had reinstated, where all wolves ran together regardless of rank. Omegas ran beside alphas. Pups raced with warriors. Unity, not hierarchy. It was one of dozens of reforms they'd implemented over the past year. Pack law had been rewritten, protections for omegas enshrined, children's rights made absolute. Not everyone had been happy about the changes. They'd faced resistance, challenges, even a few outright attempts at rebellion. But they'd faced them together. And they'd won every time. "Ready for this?" Caspian offered his hand. Arya took it, feeling the bond pulse between them, strong and unbreakable. "Always." They walked out together into the moonlight, their children running ahead, their pack waiting to welcome them. And as they shifted and ran beneath the silver moon, Arya thought about how far they'd come. From a cave in the mountains to a throne in the pack house. From broken and hiding to whole and ruling. From endings to beginnings. She'd come to the mountain to hide from destiny. Instead, she'd found it waiting in the darkness, and learned that sometimes the most broken kings made the best mates. The end. Thank you for listening to this story. Like, share and subscribe for more.